Hey, this is Stephen Amell, and you are listening to Tomorrow's Legends, the podcast. Don't fail your city.
During a trip through time, the Legends were forced to land the Wave Rider in Blue Valley, Nebraska, where they discovered a young superhero.
Yes.
About to take flight.
That's cool.
Who are you?
I'm Stargirl.
Hello, Cosmic Crew. Welcome to Tomorrow's Legends. We are here to cover the final episode of Stargirl Season 3, which also happens to be the series finale. It's called The Reckoning, and in what seems to be a pattern this year, we have to bid farewell to yet another show on the CW. And for all intents and purposes, love it or hate it, it's never a fun thing to do. And whether you will agree with what myself, Harley, or X-Force have to say tonight, cutting a show short at only 3 seasons really and truly just isn't fair, as it leaves them no time to really flesh out things and all the plot lines they've got going on, or give it a complete story where we feel satisfied. And for that part of it, I am upset in many, many ways. The Flash.
Yes, I am also upset that this series was cut short. Harley Quinn.
And Jay brought me over to Earth 2, and for now, I'm the JSA's Blue Lantern, X-Force 11.
And now, here are your hosts, the Scarlet Speedster himself, the Flash, the Maid of Mischief, Harley Quinn, and the Blue Beacon of Hope, X-Force 11.
Hello, Legends.
Hello, Gideon.
Good
for
to
one
hear
last
from
time.
her.
What's that, X-Force?
I said, good to hear her.
Good to hear her, yeah.
Although you had fun co-hosting with her the last episode.
We did, yes, we did. She was a good counterpart to or a good foil, I could say. Yeah, we had some fun. I needed to get in because you guys did such a good job the week without me, and after last week's pretty darn good episode, I had to get in and say something. I didn't want to bring a show to an end with me missing a week. That just didn't feel right. So
yeah, it was good. It's good.
It's fine, yeah.
Well, let's get to some news, guys.
We interrupt this podcast for a special report.
All right, well, this is going to be kind of a split news from me. I've got a section on Stargirl, and then I got a section on Superman and Lois. So starting out for the ratings, 460,000 viewers, making it one of the most watched CW finales this fall. And so that's good.
So who are you comparing that against?
So that's all the shows that had like that were either half season or had a like mid-season finale. Okay. So all the other shows. So
cool.
Yep. Jeff Johns was setting up a spinoff, and he said, quote, "Yes, I think there was a great show in Infinity Inc. with the Shade and Jade hunting down remaining family members, sons and daughters, nephews and nieces of the original JSA, those who were born with power that didn't yet unlock it. That shows could illustrate a really interesting difference between Courtney's JSA and what Jenny's JSA could have been. It could show characters that were born with powers that had to learn how to handle their power they inherited, instead of people who became superheroes through artifacts and not necessarily a bloodline. I would have loved the show." And me talking personally, I would have loved that too, because it would have been a little closer to what we saw in the comics. So, yeah, so the Infinity Inc. was a setup for a spinoff, which we kind of surmised it was going to be.
Backdoor pilot, as they say.
Yeah.
Should have been a backdoor pilot,
yeah,
yep. So. That's too bad.
Yeah.
No wonder we only got 2 quick episodes and boom, they're off and gone. And we're all like going, what, is that it?
Yeah,
Yeah. It's unfortunate.
Yeah, so moving over to Superman and Lois, we finally have a premiere date. So it premieres at 8 p.m. on Tuesday, March 14th. So they're going to have a DC block that night. They're going to have Superman and Lois, and then Gotham Knights. So back to Tuesday nights for Superman and Lois, and everything that I am seeing from Instagram and news reporting, I am really liking about what we're going to get in this season. Okay. I posted a YouTube video in the Facebook group that talks about speculation about Superman and Lois for season 3 with some interviews that came out before they announced the premiere date. There was some good speculation on the big bad Mannheim, who is head of Intergang, and also about Jordan Kent's powers. Plus, people are also speculating that maybe Amazon is going to take on the show in other seasons, because Amazon is going to be the producer of a lot of the animated stuff from HBO Max. So the HBO Max would still show it, but not like maybe immediately. So that they're thinking maybe Superman and Lois might get picked up there as well. But right now, that's just speculation. One of the other big points is they are casting for Superman and Lois's world's version of Lex Luthor. And they have already filmed the first half of the season. So I'm thinking this is going to be for the back half of the season. So Mannheim and Intergang would be like the main villain for the first half of the season, and then that tees into Lex Luthor. And so it's not going to be John Cryer, who was in the Supergirl universe, so they're going to cast their own Luthor. And so if we get a season 4, Luthor would carry on into that season. So they've just put the casting notice out there, so they haven't cast yet. So
interesting. Well, speculation, the first thing that pops in my mind is it would have to be a Lex Luthor that's been there the whole time, because this is a Superman story that's 40 years into the future. Like, Lex Luthor's been there. He's there from the very beginning of Superman's story. So the fact that Superman's got a family, he's got kids and everything, Luthor should have been there all along. So the fact that they're going to cast him, they're going to have to write into the story that he's been there the whole time. He's just, has Superman dealt with him before? I can't see him coming in. Or who's Lex Luthor? What the heck? Like, Superman has to know him by now. They're going to have to write a story that he's been there all along. We just haven't seen him yet.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've got mentions of LexCorp and things like that, but yeah, they're going to have to bring it in, because maybe he has been more behind the scenes stuff than, more out front villainous role. So we'll see. We'll see.
And it's also a different Earth, so they can have leeway.
Yeah, I guess in that sense.
It doesn't have to follow canon, and it probably won't.
Yeah.
I'm just going to throw that out there right now. It's not. So it's probably going to piss a lot of people off. Sounds like, including you.
Well, not pissed off. I'm just saying, just because Luthor is to Superman like Joker is to Batman, it would be weird if they bring him in as a brand new villain. Where I was thinking is they could do the Superman movies with Christopher Reeves, there where, way back in time before this show started, he already dealt with Lex Luthor. Luthor's been in prison all this time. Now he gets out and he's figured out new ways to come after Superman, and here's our new villain of season 4. And Clark could just be like, "What? I thought I dealt with you. I thought you were in prison. How'd you get out?" kind of thing. And that would just be an easy slip into, where he's been. Maybe.
Yeah.
We'll have to see.
It'll be interesting. So.
I mean, the Superman writers are pretty good. If they do write him as a new character, I guess we just see what they do with it. But
yeah. I was just thinking, since it's a different Earth, it doesn't necessarily have to follow canon, especially since, as you said, we have had almost no mention of him. So it would be weird for them, to me, it would be weird for them to act as if he had been there all along without some sort of backstory, like you just said. Like he was in prison or he was wherever, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, he could have come over from the other Earth, too.
Yeah, that's true. That's a possibility.
I mean, if they're introducing him in the back half of this season, like, Luthor's like, once he is on the show, he has to be like, Superman never ever is done with Lex Luthor. He's there all the time, just like Joker is always there. So once he's introduced,
that's true.
He's a villain that they'll never ever get rid of. He'll be constantly coming and going, or which is cool.
I mean,
that's true.
That's true.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Cool.
See what they do.
Yeah.
good stuff. Well, I just want to throw in there, I want to add in there that because Superman doesn't come back until March, we do know that Flash begins in February, and you guys know that we have covered a little bit of Flash here just as bonus footage here on Tomorrow's Legends. We have been workshopping behind the scenes on what we want to do because it is Flash's final season, and I threw out the idea of us covering it full-on with full-on Legends episodes about the Flash until Superman starts. But then another idea came up that maybe we tag team with our other network partners over on Dive into DC with John and Justina, that all 5 of us take turns covering Flash for its final season. Since we're all in this universe and we all watch the show, then it might be fun to just kind of do every week as different hosts, and we're just bringing you Flash coverage. So we're workshopping it. It's not a guarantee, but just know that there will be some kind of Flash coverage for you guys here for its final season. We just feel like we owe it to Flash. We've all been watching it for 9 years, so I think we need to take it into the sunset like we have been doing for every other show so far.
We've all been watching it, all been hating it.
Yeah, and John and Justina are going to cover the back half of the last season on their next episode in January, and so you can kind of they're doing that to get you caught up before this season starts. So.
Of season 8, they're smart. Covering the back half?
I appreciate that.
Yeah, they covered the front half and earlier this year, and they're going to cover the back half, their first episode in January, so everybody's caught up before the new season starts.
Cool.
Nice.
It's actually fun. Now that we're talking about Dive into DC, I've finally been catching up on some of their shows, because a lot of the things they've been talking about I haven't watched to be able to send in feedback or anything. I just haven't had time, so I'm way behind on everything they've been doing over there. And I'll have to show you guys. I finally picked up the comics for the TV show crossover event. The what did they call it?
Oh, nice.
What was the series called?
Yeah, I made it halfway through Stargirl.
Okay. I just picked them up. I found them in a comic book store, so I'm finally going through them, and I finally listened to their podcast based on those. So I'm going to send them a whole bunch of old feedback, whether they ever use it or not. I'm just going to send them feedback anyway.
They will.
Hey, 20 episodes ago, you covered this. Here's my feedback.
They used mine.
Did they? Yeah.
Yeah, I sent them feedback because they split up the comics in the first 3 and the last 3, and I read the first 3 and sent it, and then I haven't finished the back half. I got halfway through Stargirl and then got sidetracked. So I got to finish.
Oh, there you go. Maybe we can. Well, I'll let you know when I'm caught up, and we can double team feedback.
Okay, there we go.
I got variant covers though. I didn't, because listening to their podcast, they're complaining about how awful the artwork is for all the covers. And I went and picked them up, and I got actual TV show covers. So I have Grant Gustin, and I have Courtney, or what's Breck Basinger. I've got all the actual TV show covers.
Oh, that's better, because some
it's the artwork in general.
Yeah, it's some of it's better at capturing the actors and actresses than others.
Yeah,
and some of them is just like poor.
Stargirl was good.
Yeah,
Superman was like unrecognizable.
Wow.
So.
Yeah.
I don't have those ones, so I'll show you guys once they're on the other side of my desk. I'll get them later and show them to you.
Nice.
Cool. Is that all we got for news?
Yep.
All right.
Think so.
We now return you to our regularly scheduled podcast, currently in progress.
Let's get to our show, the ratings for this final episode.
Gathered together from the cosmic reaches of the universe.
See, and that's why we need to bring in Justina and John, because that little clip makes perfect sense then.
Yeah.
Because the 3 of us are always together, but we got to bring them in, right?
Yeah.
A 5-host podcast. That won't go wrong.
All right, X-Force, kick us off. Last episode of Stargirl, what'd you think?
I gave it 9 hopeful futures. I talked about this on the last podcast about how I wanted them to have closure, but also leave things open so we can know that their adventures continue even though we're not going to get to see them. And so in that aspect of it, I was very satisfied with this episode. Yes, the major action finished mid-episode, but that's the precedent they set on this show in Season 1, and they've carried it out all 3 seasons. Out of the 3 season finales, I think this one did the best job. this show was about the legacy of Golden Age heroes being carried on. It's always had a 40s and 50s mentality and positivity. I think in this world we need some of the wacky shows like Legends. We need gritty shows like Arrow, Batman and the Titans. And we need humor and the outlandishness of Doom Patrol. But we also need shows with heart like Stargirl. Was the finale perfect? No. And we'll get into it. But I think it was true to itself, and I enjoyed it.
Yeah. No, I am right there with you. I also gave this one 9 never-ending stories.
Hey, that's a good movie.
Yes, it is.
That movie scarred me for life. That's another story for another day. Anyways, I really enjoyed the finale, and I agree with Jeff. I think this was the best finale that the show did. I think they had figured out their formula, and I think now knowing that it is a series finale, it had the opportunity to give us a lot more closure because they have more time to do that. So I will go down fighting about this finale, I have a feeling. But anyways, so my thoughts on it were that I felt we had a final showdown in a believable way for once. The villains even get the upper hand for a bit. They explained how Sylvester came back to life, and they gave us closure on many of those plot points, many of which we considered plot holes throughout. Even up until last week, there were some things Jeff and I were like, this doesn't add up. And so I feel like they closed the loop on that, which I was quite happy about. I was disappointed that Artemis didn't get to join the final fight, especially because they specifically said, oh, she's going to show up at the last minute, just like she always does. I really felt that was a missed opportunity. But that tag scene where she takes down Icicle was just chilling. So we'll talk about that. But because the show came to an end, I was very, very happy they gave us all the tags at the end, tying up all the loose ends, showing us what happens in the future, and using the Shade for the final exposition, because he just delivers exposition wonderfully, and I love listening to it.
Great voice.
Exactly. Plus that end card, seriously, never the end. Ugh, seriously brought tears to my eyes. I am going to miss this spunky little show. It had a lot of heart, and I have come to love it.
Yeah.
Wow. What has the world done with my co-hosts here?
I'm going to murder you by the end of this podcast. So does that help?
She's got her hammer ready.
It's ready.
See, now that's the Harley I know, not this happy, lovey-dovey, sweet Harley. That's just not you.
Yeah, well, you're gonna crap all over it, so I'm gonna fight with you.
And X-Force, I was hoping you're going to come in as the neutral guy here, somewhere in the middle, and you left me hanging. I thought we're going to have a nice balance, one really positive, one really negative, one in the middle. And you're leaving me hanging here. Well, okay. Let's just get my rating out of the way here. I split this episode up into 2 ratings because I really feel like this episode was 2 different parts. We had the fight, and we had all the closure. The fight is where I struggled with the most for this episode, so I'm only giving it a 5 unsatisfying final fights. Whereas the back half of the episode, the closure and the emotional stuff, I'm giving it 7.5 all they could do endings. So for this fight, I just can't rate it or prop it up as high as you guys because I just don't think it was that good. They've done better in their fights. And Stargirl has shown us that they don't know how to do final fights. They don't know how to do the finales. And I just hoped and begged and prayed after last week, if you heard my solo episode, how much I loved last week's episode, I just thought we were going to get a better closing series finale this week. And we just didn't. Now, saying that they wrap things up so quickly is just what Stargirl does. Hey, that's where I have to disagree as well. I can't accept that. It's not good enough for me. To me, that's lazy and a cheap cop-out to fix the fact that you wasted all your time all season long and you ran out of time and now you got to wrap it all up. But I don't know. I just don't like that. I don't like that style of finish. Like, give us it's just a much stronger finale, especially in a final fight when this is the end of the season, the end of the series. And you got the 2 teams. Let's make this battle epic. To me, that is far more important than the closure stuff. We want a good fight because we're never going to see these characters on screen fighting again. So let's just do that. And this episode also had some mistakes. It had some bad edits. It had some really poor dialogue during the fight. The choreography was okay in parts, but not good in other parts. I just was hoping after 3 seasons they'd have this figured out. But a couple things I'll just bring up real quick. The 9 months ago tagline we get right in the beginning, showing Icicle taking off his mask and being totally okay, just didn't work for me in the sense that we just saw 2 weeks ago him take off his mask in front of the Crocs, which really sunk into us that that's the first time he's ever taken off his mask, because it was like he was still reforming or something. We even discussed it on the show. Maybe the mask and the suit is keeping him together until he can fully be human again. And yet this 9 month ago tagline is showing us that, hey, he's totally okay, he can take off his mask and speak and everything's fine. So it was just disconnected, and I guess the writers forgot about that. I don't know. Pat's crawl out of the grave scene, if you look at it, the forested background is not the same as the one where he got buried alive. So I just thought, that's kind of strange, guys, that you wouldn't use the same location for pretty much the same scene. It's weird. We'll talk about Pat dislocating his thumbs. I think that's in the notes later, so we'll talk about that. Mike, Jakeem, and Cindy, well, I'm confused. I thought they came out of the sewer into the junkyard or into the tire place there, and I thought that's all the same location. So I thought it was just a little too convenient that, hey, why are they just happen to show up right where they need to be? Convenience. Explain nothing, but oh well. But while on the topic of Cindy, her fight with Ultra-Dragonite Dad, thank you, Carrie. You've got the great names for these guys. It didn't last. It was so quick, like less than 5 seconds. We barely got to see anything. And then he's got her on the ground crushed. And I thought, why? We should at least be able to see the fight. I just thought that's, too quick. But don't even get me started on the stuffed animal, that the Thunderbolt turning him into a stuffed animal that I will not name. I just thought that was also lazy writing, because you're stealing from Legends of Tomorrow, the most controversial thing they've ever done. You're going to steal that idea for your series finale. I just thought it wasn't a good idea. The biggest thing I want to bring up is Courtney and Barbara, when Barbara tells her, hey, just tell him the staff doesn't work for him. And that's what Courtney goes and does, and it works. And that's it. That's the end of the fight. We should have gotten so much more. Like, it should have been Starman versus Stargirl, battle over Cosmo going back and forth between the two of them. They're trading shots. It's epically big. And all we got was, it doesn't work for you anymore. I'm Stargirl. I'm worthy. And boom, it's all over. I just was let down by that, like really let down. I'm just asking for more. I'm asking for better. Like, they've built this whole season up to that moment, and that's all we get is disappointing to me. The couple bad edits, I'll just mention the one here. The biggest one to me was at the end when Artemis takes down Icicle, and he's on his knees burning. He falls over face first on his stomach with his arms outstretched in front of him, hands down to the ground. And from that exact moment, the camera zooms in on his hands, and his hands are now palm up, facing the sky so that he can clench a fist as he's dying. That doesn't make any physical sense, because he would have had to have flipped over in order to reach to the sky with his palm, because when you're laying on your stomach, it's really hard to twist your arm all the way around and get your palms facing up. So I just thought that was a bad miss there. Shade giving the museum tour at the end of the show, cool scene, we're going to talk about it, but it says 10 years later, and that only puts our team at 24 years old. And I just thought, this is kind of weird, isn't it? A museum stands for history and things of the past. You're here to celebrate, to honor them, to read about things from the past. So why would our team have quit and retired at only 24 years old? That just seemed really strange for me. I think it should have said 25 years later or 30 years later. It would have just been more viable or believable that, yeah, our team is now done. They've done all these adventures and they're older and they're ready for retirement. It's just weird. Just weird to me. So all that to say, let's end this on something good. The first time viewing this, I didn't get into the emotional cues of the ending, the last half of the episode, is all the nice stuff, because I think I was so upset at the fight that I couldn't feel anything. But the second viewing through, the emotion actually hit better, and I actually got a couple tears, and I'll let you know when we're talking about those moments. And my rating is a 7.5, and I did say they did what they could, because this is what they could do. It's a 3-season show about a bunch of teenagers growing into their own, and how do you end that story? Like, we needed 6-7 years of the show for them to really grow up and watch them evolve and become adults and become heroes and become a team. But because that's being taken away from us, they don't have a lot of options to wrap this show up with, and the story will continue, or the story never ends type of ending that we get. I mean, what else can you do? It was okay. I mean, the emotions, it was okay. We're going to talk about all that stuff, and there you go. That's my points.
Meanwhile, at the Hall of Justice.
All right, where do we start?
All right. We are starting with the cold open. So we got to see what really happened 9 months ago when Sylvester came back to life, because everything has come into question now that we know Starman is not Starman. And we have talked consistently over this season about how everything that's being said about Starman specifically just doesn't add up. And there's a reason for that. We learned that a lot of what the Ultra-Humanite has been saying, and especially said last week still, was a lie. There was absolutely nothing wrong with Sylvester's brain. That was kind of a little bit of a nitpick for me. They just didn't need it. So they took it out. They preserved it, and then since they only needed his body, and then they put the brain of someone who could appear like Starman and then manipulate everybody to Icicle's bidding. So that's really all they wanted to begin with.
Yeah, I knew that we talked about this, but Ultra-Humanite wanted to play Sylvester, and now we get to see like him really walking that out and seeing how that was a part of Icicle's agenda. And now we know Icicle's reasoning, and this kind of helped clear things up. We're like, but why is Icicle doing this? Are he and Ultra-Humanite working two different agendas? Well, they kind of are, but Icicle knew that he needed Ultra-Humanite. He needed that face in Sylvester, and recognized that he could do more by playing stuff behind the scenes, kind of like we speculated. So it was nice to get that answer in this episode to kind of see how they came together.
Yeah, like you said, just getting some answers, putting a few of the pieces together, because I think it would have been even more frustrating if we didn't get some of these things coming full circle. I still wonder, like you, like what is Icicle doing this for? What does he need all this, face swapping and everything going on? But you just explained it, X-Force, that he needed Starman's face because that gains the trust of everybody. That's how he gets in, and he gets the trust, and he gets the world to trust him, not just the team, but everybody to trust him, because it's Starman. So it does ultimately make sense. The part that kind of freaked me out there is that they cut his head open with him fully awake and not sedated, no painkillers, no nothing. He's laying there strapped to the table, and they're cutting his head open. That's crazy to me.
Yeah, that was pretty wicked.
That's horrific.
That's major trauma.
Yeah.
So
that's to be brought back to life only to be essentially killed again in that gruesome way is that's crazy. Crazy.
Yeah, that was pretty wild. All right, well, I just wanted to call out the cold open because I do feel like it helped clear up a lot of things that I know Jeff and I very specifically questioned in the last week's episode. And Bart, I'm sure you were questioning it also. So moving...
You didn't listen to my episode, did you?
Sure didn't. I didn't have time. Anyway, so we're going to move on to the JSA section here. And we're going to talk about Pat because I think for once all of us are on the same page. I am very happy Pat survived. I would have been extremely angry if they killed him off. They already killed off the Crocs. But I have a really hard time believing he clawed his way out of that grave. I agree with you there. It just was completely unbelievable. It's definitely one of the reasons I docked the episode a point. It just... not believable.
No, because if you go back to the week before, I swear he had ropes wrapped all the way around him, like loop after loop after loop from his neck to his ankles. So
It wasn't
I don't know.
that much, but there were
Quite a few bands,
like definitely
yeah.
at his ankles.
Yeah.
But like it wasn't like
He wasn't like mummified.
No,
you
not-
know what I
not
mean?
that
But
bad.
he
No,
definitely had
but-
his feet bound, and so it's like, how would you really get yourself up out of a grave that way? Anyway, I don't know.
yeah.
I'm with you. I thought that was horribly unbelievable.
Yeah, and I was disappointed that the grave was fully filled in. Like it made it less believable to me. Like I was saying, it wasn't all the way filled in. It was just like part of the way, and so yeah, that's what brought my grade down a little bit too. And yeah, they had to have something in the story about. You think about all those years of being a sidekick and having no powers, and we even saw this on Superman and Lois last season, where she can get out of all of these knots because she's been kidnapped so many times. You think about how many times, like, they're gonna go after the sidekick, and so I can understand, like, he's experienced at getting out, like, but it wasn't as believable.
I just looked. You guys are right. I'm wrong. He was only wrapped a few times. What I was picturing in my head was actually patches of dirt that was covering different areas of his body. So I just paused the image. It was patches of dirt, not wraps. So it looked like he had 3 or 4 wraps around him, and that was. But still, anyway.
Yeah.
Still, though, I mean, clawing your way out of a grave, and if you're not bound, if you're actually 6 feet down, is pretty.
Well, the weight of the dirt on you alone, like that's going to be hard to move. But
Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, I think I speculated that perhaps because, like, while Starman, Ultra-Humanite, was kind of monologuing, that he was off in his own world and maybe, like, distracted enough that Pat had somehow, like, worked his way to the side or gotten out somehow, maybe without him noticing, because he's, like, certifiable, but clearly that did not happen, so...
Yeah.
Unbelievable, but that's okay.
But I'm with you that there's no way they could kill Pat. Like, it's just... I was
Exactly.
expecting someone on our team to die this episode, but nobody did, so... I guess you can't kill a kid character. It's so...
That does get a little bit tricky when they're all technically still
So
kids.
And we don't know, like, they might have, like, if they were going to do, like, a closing, they might have done some type of different if they were going to get another season just to amp things up for next season, but we don't know.
Yeah, that's true. I have a feeling they redid some of those tags on the end to give us closure instead of a cliffhanger.
And that's interesting, like... We've heard from the cast that they filmed 2 different endings, and yet in an interview with Jeff Johns, he said, I didn't change anything. All I did was change one scene at the end, like one little moment. And he said that was it. There was nothing different. So it's
really?
very conflicting stories. The cast says we filmed 2 different endings, and Jeff Johns says, no, I didn't do anything different. Like, I changed some of the words at the end. That was it. Like, he said we didn't do anything. So I thought...
Maybe they filmed it, and then the way they were able to cut it together at the end, they didn't have to change much.
Maybe.
I don't know. I don't know. That is interesting that they're saying kind of different things there.
Yeah.
All right, well, at least Pat surviving set up for me a very enjoyable fight. I thoroughly enjoyed watching him and Sylvester, well, S.T.R.I.P.E and Sylvester, and then Pat and Sylvester kind of finally get to go toe-to-toe. So once he got the reveal that, Sylvester's not Sylvester, I liked seeing him get a little bit of closure there and understanding, like, what was really going on and how he was really being manipulated. And we finally get to see S.T.R.I.P.E in action and some neat effects with the staff as well. So I enjoyed this part of the battle. I thought it was pretty fun.
Yeah, I really enjoyed the FX of the staff of, defending against the hand, cutting the car in half, just some of the abilities and the special effects that we saw in the fight sequence involving the staff. But I truly loved the fight between Ultra-Humanite and Pat more.
Yeah.
Because it felt like it was more personal, it had more gravity to it. Pat was truly Ultra-Humanite's stumbling block, not S.T.R.I.P.E, so it was more personal, and it was Pat's love, guidance, and help that foiled the plan, not his his work in S.T.R.I.P.E. So to see the two of them duke it out and really Pat go all in when he knew it wasn't his friend was more personal to me, and it upped the stakes for me, just because he was not holding back anymore because he knew it wasn't.
Yeah, see, and on that stuff, I can agree with you guys. It did look really good. I mean, when we've been waiting how long to see S.T.R.I.P.E in action, because we didn't get him last season either, did we? Really? Like, it was just
not really. We got him a little early this season with that fight at the supermarket.
Yeah. But it was cool. Like they put a lot into it. It looked great. The effects were great. He was swinging and duking it out and stuff, but he kind of blew a shot there when he sent his fist out there, and Starman just blocked it. Now he's down one arm, so that's kind of, I think, where he lost ground in the fight. And having Starman or Ultra-Humanite actually rip him out of there, and they're fighting toe-to-toe, it did bug me. Like, Pat really shouldn't be able to stand toe-to-toe. I mean, this is Starman's body after all. He's a trained fighter. I didn't think Pat should be able to stand up to him at all. It should have been a pretty brutal beating for Pat. I mean, he did get beat up pretty good, but I guess a good rock to the head can take anybody down, because he knocked him right out with that. So, but yeah, I do agree with you as well, X-Force, that the personal depth of what's happening in that scene did put a lot of heft and a lot of meaning to the two of them facing off, because you can't imagine what's going through Pat's mind. He's punching his best friend in the face, and trying to remember, this isn't my best friend. This isn't my best friend. Why is my best friend hitting me?
Right.
Like, it's I can imagine the psychological effect there.
Yeah, no, I agree. That's pretty wild. All right, so we're gonna move on. I've got some speculation here on what was going on with the staff. I mean, I feel like they confirmed a good bit of this through dialogue in the episode, but I figure we can just kind of talk it through. So we get information about like how the only reason the staff kind of worked for the Ultra-Humanite in Starman's body was essentially because Courtney gave up Cosmo. So when she kind of recognized Starman like as her superior and as Starman, because she didn't know any better, she basically like lets her bond with Cosmo fade. That's kind of like what we're told throughout the episode. So like Starman was able to solidify the bond back with the staff, even though it wasn't really Starman's brain. It was still like his body, his physiology, and that bond existed. So I was happy in the end for her to like come to that recognition that this isn't Starman. He doesn't deserve the staff, and I was happy to see her reclaim her confidence and then rekindle her bond and basically take the staff away, because that's what I've been waiting for all season. So
yeah, I mean, I know, Flash, you brought up the pep talk from Barbara saying, who you really are, and that gave her the confidence to take back the staff. And I'll bring up the point of all season, Ultra-Humanite has been very deferential to Courtney and talking about sharing and getting in and undermining her with her friends, like he talked about, that he wanted to be in charge and have all of the other members of the JSA under him, but he really needed to get her to give it over to him. He couldn't just take it. And getting to see her confidence and come back, I really appreciated that. And even though it was Ultra-Humanite teaching her how to really use the staff, she learned a lot from him, and just the abilities that she upped in this battle scene of her coming down, using some of that shooting star, and how like she basically had a shield around herself for a little bit. You could see the energy. So she's taken the things that she's learned from this guy, even though that he wasn't the original guy, and applying it to herself. So I appreciated the fact of her owning up and taking things back.
I think, Carly, you should actually, because I'd be curious your thoughts. I wanted you guys to add both your thoughts on my solo episode. I really brought into question how this all works with the staff and with what's going on here. And I was really trying to question it and figure it out. And that's the one thing I wish they had given us a little more closure on as well, is how does Cosmo work? And
Yeah, I think that's...
But the things I was questioning is, it's Ultra-Humanite's brain and Starman's body. How does that translate? How does that work? Like, when they connect their brain, are they connecting all the synaptic connections, and his brain is now connected to the body, and does the body retain some type of memory that can... I don't want to go over the whole thing again. Like, I really tore into it in my solo episode. I'm just trying to understand, how does this work, someone else's brain in that body, and allow him to remember so much about that person's life and all the intimate details that he shouldn't know about. Like, you can't just study someone's life from Googling them or whatever and know this many intimate details. There's got to be something to do with the physiology of putting your brain in someone else's body. There's some type of retained memory. I don't know. So I was really, really trying to figure all that out. The one thing I did like about the scene, though, that I'll admit to, is when Courtney does finally get the staff, and she comes crashing to the ground, and she's in the superimposed down on one knee, and she looks up, and the camera's zoomed right in on her face, and she's just got that little half smile. That was a great shot. That was just a really, really cool shot of Stargirl coming into her own, and here I am, I'm finally the hero. That was a cool moment for her.
So you're talking, brought something up to me. I think there's a reason that they did not just, like, get rid of Sylvester's brain. Yeah. Because, like, why not just get rid of the brain? You don't need it unless there's some type of tie between the brain and the Ultra-Humanite, so he can draw on those memories. There's no reason other than plot device for them to keep a brain in a jar. So my thought is, he is pulling on those memories, pulling on those skills and abilities, and that's why they need that brain still around. And that's just my thought after, because your episode last week, brought that up, because I don't necessarily think, like, the staff is, like, bonded to DNA, but, like, I think this was a reason of maybe why the brain was in the jar, and I never really thought about that until you started talking about why and how. And so that maybe that's the reason, is, like, he's pulling memories and skills and abilities through. So I don't know.
I'm glad you brought that up, because seeing the brain in the jar actually kind of solidifies my hypothesis that the Ultra-Humanite, we know he's got telekinetic and telekinesis type abilities. He can control people's minds. We don't know what the extent of it is. Can he read memories? So in keeping the brain, you just said it, he's able to continually glean from that brain and keep getting the information he needs from Starman's brain, his memories, his life, everything. If he has that as part of his ability set, it now makes sense, because that was one of my speculation points, was does the Ultra-Humanite somehow, before he takes the brain out, does he somehow interface with it and download everything he needs to get to know that person so well? And so, yeah, I think that actually makes sense now that we saw the brain in the jar. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's probably a new thing that Dragon King helped with, because I don't think he probably had that before, with previous hosts. Like, he didn't have that ability, but he didn't really need it. But Dragon King maybe helped, with the science there.
Yep. Yeah. So. No, I mean, I think that's a great theory. I do still think there's a bit to there, though, with a staff and a physical bond with a person, because they made a really big deal saying about Starman's bond with Cosmo is specifically what preserved his body. So I do think there is still a physical element there, which is why Starman, even though he wasn't really Starman mentally, was able to rebond with Cosmo and convince Courtney slowly over time to let her bond fade, which is why he was able to overpower her. And I think her being able to realize, hey, this isn't Starman, like, he shouldn't be able to, like, bond with it, was, like, her way of reigniting her, like, physical bond, because Cosmo's clearly bonded with both of them. And so I think just that confidence and understanding that and understanding her power is tied into the staff still as well. Like, had it gone on for, like, years, I think her bond, like, truly would have faded to the point where maybe she couldn't have done that. But I think because it had only faded enough to let like the Ultra-Humanite really use the staff effectively and like take it from her when she had lost her confidence. But I think when she was fully believing and fully understanding like who he was, I feel like that also, that knowledge kind of reignited the bond and then like was somehow transferred to Cosmo as well.
I like your guys' theories there. I can accept her losing confidence weakens the bond with Cosmo. That does make some kind of sense for sure.
Yeah, and honestly, she didn't have the staff a whole lot. So like, you know, so that bond of like being there and being out on missions wasn't there as well. So she, you know, she gets her hands back on it in this episode.
I just wanted a little bit more, a little more expose on how Cosmo works. It would have been.
Oh
and
yeah,
I think
too.
we could have gotten that had the show gone on, but there's no way they could have fit that in.
Lots of things to explore.
Yeah. All right, well, I've got a couple other points on some of our other JSA members. This stuff didn't really fit naturally into the discussion anywhere else. So we're going to jump to the end a bit for a minute. And the first point I wanted to bring up is Rick apologizing to Beth's family. So, and we get some interesting reveals about them later, which I think I have in the later section, that kind of took me by surprise. But
you haven't been on Twitter.
Oh, I know. I've been avoiding Twitter.
Oh, yeah. So, like, there were people pulling for that all season.
Okay.
I got a comment about that, but I'll wait.
I had in my head, I had just put him and Yolanda together because I felt like they were closer and they were leaning towards a relationship with them more. But anyway, I'm not upset about it. But anyway, I liked the scene where Rick finally he admits that he's kind of treated them pretty bad when all they've done is just try to help him. So
I appreciate that because he hurt all of the JSA with his actions, and I'm sure he apologized to the rest of them, but to see this him personally apologize to them, I think was poignant because we couldn't get him apologizing to everybody, but yeah, he had hurt them most of all because he had, they were just trying to help him. So
yeah, no, you guys are right there too. It's just the thing that bugged me is we go last episode, Rick takes off the necklace and he's in immediate pain and discomfort and struggle, and then we don't see any cure from that. And then in this episode, he takes the necklace off, puts it down on a coffee table, and he's totally fine. There's a disconnect there. Why didn't did they solve his cure? Did they fix him somehow? Like, where's the information there that he can now take it off and be okay? So that's the only part that bugged me there. They never finished that storyline for us.
Yeah, I mean, we saw him dealing with the effects of it during the battle.
Yeah.
But still.
No, I agree. That was a little bit of a jump. I had that question too. I was like, you're just okay now? Like, how does this work? Like, I like that they left the struggle in during the battle because otherwise it would have been like really unbelievable. But yeah, I was confused at the jump there as well.
So, because in the battle, he it's almost like he had almost like he was having a heart attack or something, and like the way he kind of collapses and he's holding his chest and goes and runs behind one of the cars for cover.
Yeah, his blurred vision
his blood pressure got too high too. So. Yeah. Anyway, all right. So the other thing that we see is that Beth officially makes her parents sidekicks. This is kind of the same scene, but I thought that was cute. It was a nice touch. She officially brings them into the fold because they're helping her anyway. So,
I think it's good to see them as a team and a family union, and it's true to the comics. And through seasons 1 and 2, she was the one holding the family together. She was the one really being the parent to them because they had their own lives and they're doing their own things. And now to see them back, and it's back in the right perspective of them being parents and there to support her and uplift her and talking about new suits and things like that. And so I really appreciated the turn that we got there. So
exactly.
Did they not, in the later sequence when they're all around the dining room table getting ready for dinner together, did they not give themselves sidekick names? I couldn't pick up what they were. Did you guys catch what they're...
Nightlight and was it Hootie?
In honor of Dr. Midnight's owl.
Yeah. Okay.
Midnight's owl.
I assumed those were pulled straight from the comics.
I don't know.
Yeah, I haven't researched
I haven't
that,
either.
You know,
Yeah.
but I know they helped her design a new costume.
I wish we had
and
seen
things
it
like
because
that,
that's
so.
all we've been complaining about since the very beginning is give her a better costume. They
I
should
know.
have given us that at least at the very end. Hey, look it, we got your new costume, and she gets to try it on. That would have been cool.
We would have had a new one had we gotten a season 4, it sounds like. And they would have had them as well. Should
Yeah.
have been funny. I was disappointed by that, but... All right, shall we move on to probably the bulk of our discussion here with Jordan and the perspective from Cameron and the Icicles. This is where we get a lot of the battle stuff coming back in. So
Yeah.
we are going to start with the revelation. Not really, but Jordan has been manipulating Cameron the entire time, which we have clearly seen. So he would convince his friends to join them, or, in a shocking turn of events, not really, help his family kill them. So effectively what he needs is he really wants everyone on the same team. He wants all the heroes to back his agenda. So between Starman and the JSA, like, everyone is behind him and supporting him, and he can do whatever it is he wants to do. That is one thing, we may talk more about this later, but we never really figured out what his agenda was. And I don't know if it's the same from season 1 or not.
That's true.
but
Yeah, you're right.
That did bother me that we never really were told what it was. But anyways, that would have probably been season 4.
We speculated, like I speculated, that same things on a smaller scale as season 1, since he didn't have the mind control. So, like, he saw that people couldn't be mind controlled as easily, and they have to be manipulated more subtly. That's why he needed Starman in the face to be, part of the plan, and adding JSA would be icing on the cake. But he still wanted Barbara.
I know.
But Ick, not only the two of them together, but he wanted to have / marry Barbara while Cam and Courtney would be together.
A little weird.
I mean, it just, no, yuck, no.
Well, I mean, if she wasn't married to Pat, then it seems perfectly normal. I guess because that would make Courtney and Cameron like step siblings by marriage. So yeah, that's the weird part.
Clueless.
But I mean, is it any worse than Barry and Iris after growing up together? Like,
no, it's arguably better than the Barry and Iris situation. Anyways, that's just a whole other thing we don't need to get into.
But
That's weird.
You do pick it apart pretty good. xforce, it does the whole manipulation thing. Him realizing that he's got to do it in a little more subtle way and using people to do it for him just is. I guess we could say that was his agenda. I'm just going to do the exact same thing, but I'm going to do it better. Really is what we have to go with for, why Icicle came back. I don't know. Yeah. That's all I can say.
His agenda isn't a bad one. It's just his execution is bad. Just why can't you just do things the traditional way? Run for office, man. Affect change the normal way. Why you gotta manipulate everybody? But anyway, I digress. All right, so we have Courtney. She's trying to go through to Cameron. She's trying to tell him the truth, and then Icicle nearly kills her for it. So Cameron can now actually see his dad's true nature, and he can hear what Courtney's saying, and he can now really hear what Courtney's saying. It's like, yeah, my dad maybe not be a great guy. Same with Grandma. His grandmother's insane, but we'll get to her in a minute.
Can I just jump in and say, I called that. I knew that Icicle was going to show his true colors. I knew that Cameron was going to turn on him to save Courtney. I called it a couple weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you and several other ones called that. And, I said Dreamweaver, maybe Perry White too. Yeah, he was going to have to step in, and he was going to be the one to stop his dad.
Yeah, he was the only one that could have done that. So
yeah. So what? Right. Because one of my other complaints was in this big fight, Icicle really didn't do anything, and I kind of left this out of my rant. I forgot it. It's just that they've been building since he came back. They've been trying to prove to us that he is way more powerful than he ever was before. And when it comes to the big fight, I thought we were finally going to see some cool stuff. And all he basically does is shoot a few ice blasts. That's all he was doing. So I felt really disappointed in that. I wanted so much more out of him than just shooting a few ice blasts, because big deal. That's what he's always done. But this trick that he did to Courtney, did he like freeze her lungs or something? Is that what he did?
I think he was freezing her from the inside out. He was freezing all the moisture in her body.
Yeah, like he did with the Crocs.
Yeah, okay, so same thing. Okay.
Yeah. He was just doing it more controlled and more slowly. So.
Yeah. Yeah, because it looked like he took her breath away, because you saw her breathe out cold air out of her. I was like, oh crap, he's freezing her lungs. Okay.
Yeah, I just think he was freezing all of her in general. But maybe.
Yeah, he was just doing it slower because he still wanted Cameron.
Yeah, he was trying
to maybe
manipulate still, but
I had hoped he had turned into full Icicle. Like, I wanted to see the Iceman look again. Like,
oh yeah, that would have been cool.
I wanted so much more for him.
I think he kind of evolved a little bit, and that's what they were trying to bring home, is that him and Cameron both sort of have the ability to turn into other forms, so they don't have to like just ice up. I think that's what they were trying to drive home.
Yeah. Well, actually, I don't know if you have it anywhere here. Let's just talk about Cameron here for a second. Is like what he can suddenly just disappear now to a puff of snowflakes, and he can float away. Like what was going on with that?
That's my last point.
Is it? Oh, okay.
It is.
And you can answer that question there then, because I was kind of curious. Like, what is happening there?
Yeah, we'll bring that back up.
Okay, and you'll talk about what he did to his dad too, because I was questioning that too.
Yes. Yeah, because I'm just kind of, for this part of it, it kind of goes more in chronological order because everything involved all the Icicle people. So the next scene that we kind of get to is that Beth and Grandpa Icicle are ready for a truce, it looks like, but they are trying to find a way to stop the fighting, which is going to be very difficult because Granny Icicle won't have any of that. She turns on her husband, and then just in the nick of time, Yolanda throws herself in the middle trying to, I guess, save Beth, and ends up distracting Grandma, and so she shoots an ice blast, misses Yolanda, and knocks a car on top of herself, crushing her like Wizard of Oz. It kind of made me laugh.
Just said it. That's exactly shit. I got complete flashbacks of Wizard of Oz.
I didn't read ahead.
I don't have any notes in here. Not only does she crush herself with the car, and we see her feet sticking out, a la Wicked Witch of the West underneath the house, but she even sounded like a witch. She was very witch-like. I'm like, you are a nasty witch.
Yeah.
Like, you just instantly turn on your husband without any question about it at all. Just instantly, I'll kill you. Wow. She's a piece of work.
Yeah. Yeah, everybody in the group was comparing Granny to the Wicked Witch of the East, which is the one that's under the house. But so that was great. So,
she was. She got what was coming to her. I was happy to see her come to an end.
Yes, definitely. So.
But it was cool that Grandpa was like, because he even yelled at them in the hall in his Norwegian language. He even said, "Stop lying to him." And he was against it all the way. He's had enough. Like, he wanted peace.
He did. He wanted peace, and he was fighting for it. And unfortunately, I think Jordan was a little bit too much like Mommy Dearest. So too
much. Yeah. I do give him credit. There's a scene where they're all running towards the camera. Grandpa Icicle was running pretty fast for an old guy.
Nice.
Who had just had a heart attack.
He was hightailing it out of there pretty quick. Yeah. So I don't know if they sped up the footage or not, but he was moving.
That's pretty funny. This kind of comes into the middle. We eventually get Barb to the rescue. So we see an arrow go into Jordan, and I definitely thought that was the arrow from Artemis. Although I love this reveal as well. I love the payoff of Barbara using the mini crossbow, just like Paula taught her.
Yeah. It's bittersweet to see her step up and use what Paula taught her, but I really appreciated that she was there for her daughter. And, Paula had been teaching her, trying to teach her to fight, trying to do all this stuff. And, she's hesitant, but when it comes to defending her daughter, she's stepping up, and I really appreciated that.
Yeah, it was I didn't think of Artemis right away. As soon as I saw the bolt go in, I was like, Barbara is going to hit her or something. But then I thought, no, it could be Artemis, and then we get the reveal. So it was really
Yeah.
But I mean, she got her shot, and what else is Barbara going to do? She's not a fighter, but she got her shot. So we all asked for it, and they gave it to us.
Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yep.
All right. So in the end, Cameron does have to be the one to stop his dad. So Flash, here we are. We can talk about this. So here's what I think happened. To me, it looked like he kind of destabilized Jordan. Like he kind of flew into him and not like blew him apart, but like also turned him into snow or something somehow. I mean, we know he's not dead, at least not yet, because we do get the reveal at the end. But it looked to me like Cameron turns himself into snow as well. So he kind of like starts like by blasting into Icicle, where we see Icicle, I feel like, start to blow apart, but then Cameron also it looked to me like he kind of like goes through, because you see a face come up, and I thought that was Cameron's face, not necessarily Jordan's face, but that was...
I thought
it was Jordan's.
Jordan.
Yeah,
Okay.
so did I, yeah.
Okay, well, maybe that makes more sense. So maybe at that instance, he didn't really turn into snow. He just like destabilized Jordan and then dispersed Jordan as snow, I guess, like out into the air.
Yeah, like because there was a big cloud, like a big storm cloud that went shooting straight up, and then you saw the face come out of it yelling, as he's flying away to the stratosphere. So that's what I was saying. What exactly did Cameron do? Because they both have the exact same ice powers. So how does Cameron overpower his dad, get him to decompose into just snow and particles of water or whatever, without his dad being able to, like, because what they're telling us is that Cameron is more powerful after they told us that Jordan is way more powerful than he was last time we saw him. It's just that there was a little confusion there as to what was going on. Now, how did Cameron overpower his more powerful dad and send him to the sky?
Well,
I guess.
Yeah, I think some of it has to do with just the training and the reasoning of how Cameron was taught to use his powers, with Courtney helping him, of using it to defend, and both Courtney and his granddad, and the emotion behind it, and also with his dad, with Jordan. I don't care, like, you're going up against your son, and you said you're going to fight him, but there's still going to be some part of you that's going to hold back. I don't care how evil you are, there's going to be some part that's going to hold back. And I think between the two of those things, that's what allowed Cameron to get the upper hand.
Yeah, and we've also seen that, like, Courtney taught Cameron how to use his powers, and she had him focus on positive things like love and his family and wanting to protect his family, whereas his dad is fueled by pure evil, just like his grandmother. Yeah. So I think that was the difference, kind of like goes back to the cheesy thing, love conquers all, or, positive energy always outweighs negative energy, good always defeats evil, like that sort of concept. So that's kind of where I was going with it.
Yeah, and then let's add in there that he can turn to snow. Like, how does he travel there? Because in the end, he says, I'm taking my grandpa and we're getting out of here. And poof, a cloud of snow and they're gone. So what's happening there? Is he teleporting? Is he turning to snow and floating to the sky and they can control where they fly? What do you guys speculate on that?
Yeah. No.
Yeah, it seems that way, because like we get we'll talk about it later, but we see the snow in the end and like he's suddenly there, so it looks like he can manipulate that ability. So so I don't know.
When we get the reveal that Jordan's alive, we see him as water being able to move coherently as a being. At that point he wasn't like super conscious, but he was able to form himself as a water puddle and move himself. So I think it's just kind of playing on that concept that Cameron figured out he can turn himself into snow and just, kind of go away.
And obviously, like, I think he helped his granddad
because they
do
both
that as well. I mean, like,
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, he,
So,
took his granddad with him.
Right. So, it's probably a power that they have. So, yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. Yeah, it almost looked like he, transferred, he was able to do it, with his grandfather. Like, he transferred, his power through him and his grandfather, kind of the same way he tried to do it with his dad to, destabilize him or whatever. Or maybe he didn't, and like you said, maybe he never really intended to kill him. He just intended to stop him enough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. But yeah, that's kind of how I took it, that he was the one driving that, but that's what happened. Alrighty. Well, that kind of rounds out that battle, so let's jump into the other battle that we have going on with Jakeem, Mike, the Thunderbolt, and Cindy.
Yeah, and before you get into this, I'm going to counter your point in the beginning, Flash. This does not take place at the junkyard. It takes place at the tire factory from season 1, which is
I
not
thought the
at
junkyard
the junkyard
and the tire factory were
they're
side by side, the same thing.
No,
I don't
they're
think so.
they're
They were not
the
in the same
junkyard-
places.
the junkyard's further out because last season when Mike had to get out there and it's a ways away from town, and we see in season 1 Courtney's going on patrol and ends up fighting Brainwave there at the plant. So the plant's a little more in town than the junkyard.
Okay, but I thought in this episode there was a couple moments when they were ducking, hiding behind stuff. They could hear the battle happening. I swear they could hear the fight happening, which was the other team fighting, and they were hiding behind stuff.
I took it as Cindy's battle with her dad.
Yeah.
I never thought they were in the same place.
Yeah.
That was my take on it, but because she takes on her dad. She's the only one that's really got reliable powers. Mike has nothing, and Jakeem is still trying to figure himself out. So she, basically takes on her dad, and I feel like this is good for her. This is kind of it maybe gives her a little bit of closure of being able to take on her dad in this way, because she hadn't fully been able, to really kind of come to terms with everything, I don't think. So I like that he finally kind of gave her that showdown, or she got that showdown, I guess. Although she's there's no way she can match the albino gorilla body. He gains the upper hand very quickly. She puts up a good fight, and we know she's a very skilled fighter, but there was no way.
Yeah, as powerful as she is, her dad knows her well and can match any moves that she makes. Plus, the brute strength was just horrible. You could see him just grabbing her, and honestly, he was going to kill her. I had no doubt that he was just going to kill her. I think
he was about to literally rip her in half.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, because he was holding her to the ground and he had both hands around her torso, and it's like he was squeezing her or something. But he was also saying, it's you and me, join me, and you're mine. I don't know if he was going to kill her. I think he was maybe just going to immobilize her, and maybe just so he can perform more experiments on her and get her back to his side. I don't know.
I don't know.
Put her brain in a different body.
Yeah.
There you go. Yeah.
He definitely knows how to do that.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm watching the scene right now, guys, and you're right. It does say Blue Valley Tires, so I will give you guys that one. I'll call that point back, because it's going from the Blue Valley Tires to the junkyard, but it's cutting back and forth so fast, and the sounds that they were hearing was the Ultra-Humanites smashing around in the background looking for them.
Yeah.
So that's where my confusion came in. I thought because they were listening, oh, what is that? And they could hear all these crashing and bashing noises. It's just the Ultra-Humanite looking for them in the background. So that's where I made that confusion. So
yeah, no,
there you go.
I definitely thought they were in two different places. Okay.
Yeah.
Good. All right. So Jakeem, yay, Jakeem. He finally embodies the Thunderbolt, and he's kind of got the hang of this whole wishing thing. It's more about the intent than the specific wish per se. because while you can never predict how the Thunderbolt will accomplish what you need, it seems that Jakeem at least knows how to get the end result he needs. He has figured out the whole intention and in his heart thing. He's like, no, it is this way because that's what I said. So I was like, all right, you own it, man. You own it.
Yeah, finally a way to make his power more relevant, and yet it was true to the craziness of the Thunderbolt, like you said. Honestly, But honestly, this was a major downer for me. The whole Mike, Jakeem, Thunderbolt, Cindy story, like Flash has talked about, has been somewhat tacked on this season. And having Thunderbolt defeat Dragon King in the way that he did just didn't feel weighty enough for how powerful and things like that. It was silly, like the Eclipso toast from last season. I mean, it's true to Thunderbolt.
It's true to Thunderbolt,
Yeah, I mean, but it just, I don't know, it just didn't have the weight that I would have liked. So
that's a lot nicer way of saying the way I said it, but that's exactly what I'm trying to get at. Like the Ultra-Humanite was built up to be this imposable figure that they need everybody, good guys and bad guys, to stand up against, because how are we going to stop this guy? And he gets defeated by two kids with a magic pink pen.
That's not the Ultra-Humanite, that's Dragon King.
Or Dragon King. But he's in the gorilla body. It's still super powerful. It was too easy. It was just too quick and too easy. I needed more out of that fight. I needed something more to happen, because like I said, we got the fight. We saw maybe 2.5 seconds of Cindy fighting with him, and then it cut to the next scene. And then the next scene that comes back, she's on the ground, he's already beaten her, and then we get the wish. So it wasn't enough, where I'm agreeing with you, X-Force. It wasn't enough to defeat that guy. Should have been more. But what I liked on the opposite end is when Jakeem actually says, no, it is my wish, and I say this. And you see his eyes glow pink, and you see the lightning come from within him, and it's almost like the Thunderbolt flowed through him and then out of the pen. That was really cool. That was like an evolution of Jakeem becoming Jakeem Thunderbolt, like they expressed at the end. I was like, that was actually cool. I appreciated that.
Yeah, and the thing I didn't notice about the end scene until now is the pen is there under glass in the museum. So, like, Thunderbolt is not tied to the pen, and it really is Jakeem Thunderbolt. They're, inhabiting the body. So, yeah.
So somehow there's a transition there, which is cool. I mean, it was cool because we've never been happy with the Thunderbolt and how they've used him. I mean, remember that scene when they brought him to take on the Shade for the first time, and he flies out across the table, and Shade just basically slaps him away. Done. Well, what good is Thunderbolt? He's been useless every time they try to use him, and not to mention the wishing and how difficult it is to get the right wish out. So I'm glad that finally came to a head, and it paid off, that Jakeem could figure it out and say it in one quick little sentence and get the wish that he wants to happen. That made me feel better about that moment. Like, yes, finally, not a 3-page written thing that they got to say and all this kind of, because how many times I say, how's that going to work in a fight? It won't, right? So
exactly.
So it was cool. Seeing his face light up with all the electricity was cool. It was a cool effect.
Exactly. All right. Any other thoughts on this section before we move on? All right, so I'm calling all of the tags at the end, and I've kind of just listed them literally one by one, so we can talk as much or as little about each of them as we want. I just wanted to make sure that we mentioned everything. So I've called this one Never the End. And the first little tag we get to is Sylvester's brain in stasis, and we learn he is eventually reunited with his body. So we talked a good bit of speculation about him earlier, but I do like they gave us that closure. They showed us that the brain is still around, and they kind of, then the Shade ends up telling us that they did rescue Sylvester and bring him back to life. So.
Oh, yeah, I forgot he said that in his story. Yeah, because they gave us his brain, like, where's brain? It was way up on the top of a mountain peak, like, I don't know where, in Mongolia, wherever that mountain is. Like, they didn't say where, but holy cow, I would love to have seen the adventure of how they discovered that and where they found it, because that was pretty far away laboratory. That wasn't in Blue Valley.
Yeah.
So, cool.
All right, next we have Mike having lunch with his birth mom.
Yeah, I'm glad that he reconnected with her and that Pat and Barbara gave him the space to do that. And, I know if we had gotten more seasons, they would have taken time to delve into Pat and Mike's relationship, that we saw, the after effects of, from the Shadowlands of what he went through, and Pat questioning his fathering and things like that. I know we would have gotten more of that throughout more seasons. And honestly, I'm glad they didn't try to pack all of that into this episode. But I loved when Pat called Barbara Mom. I mean, that just really got to me, because she has been there for him and been in that role and really been there from the seasons that we have seen in real ways. And you can appreciate, like, he's got a biological mom that he's going to make some pathways to, but he's got a mom, and I really appreciated that, and it just it really touched me.
That's the part that brought a tear to my eye in the second viewing, when he just said, "Thanks, Mom," and she starts crying. I was like, "Oh, okay, that got me." I'll give him that. That little bit got me, because
it was a good scene. I'm glad that they gave us that closure with that storyline, because I think we needed that. They've been building to it all season, so we needed to see that for sure.
Yeah, I agree with you that we needed it, but I wish it wasn't part of the finale episode. That was a very long scene, and I wish we had gotten that in a previous episode. Like, wrap that part up sooner and give us more time for the fight for other stuff in the finale series ending episode. So,
yeah, I mean, honestly, I think that was, it would have been better in season 2 or something like that. I mean, season 4, but anyway.
Yeah.
But I mean, give them credit. They are trying to tie up a lot of the story ends. So, it just sucks here. The finale episode, like, there's more that I wanted than watching Mike's story, because none of us have ever been really truly excited about Mike's scene time. So.
Yeah, but they, kind of set this whole thing up, and they've set things up with him and Pat that we needed some closure on if the series was never coming back. So I'm glad we got it. All right, Courtney gives Becky the letter from the gambler.
So again, it's good to get some closure. But honestly, this brings up a major contention I have with this season. We never get fully shown or told ISA's reasoning for killing the gambler. We know because he wouldn't align with their plan. But we've talked about it. But like, they haven't addressed it. They haven't shown it. They haven't implied it. It's just they've implied it, but they haven't shown it or put it through any dialogue. So we know that they killed the gambler because he wasn't gonna, he was like the Crocs. He was going to not go along with the plan. He was going to stand in the way of Icicle's plan. But all this build up, all this, stuff about the murder, and we don't get a true explanation for it. So it's a miss for me on this season.
And I have a feeling there's a lot of people that are with you on that, because the first 6 episodes are all about the gambler, the murder mystery. Hey, we're playing a live action version of Clue, the board game. Who did what with who killed who with what weapon in what room? It was an intriguing start, but they never let it flow through. It never kept up. They just dropped it, and now they come back to it all the way at the end again to say, oh, hey, by the way, remember the storyline? Here's the ending for it. It was a failed through line for the season, for sure.
Yeah.
Nice scene, really nice scene for Courtney and this girl. It was played well. It was emotional to watch. And I mean, imagine finding that out about your dad when you had no idea about anything about him. And it allows Courtney to feel good. Hey, I did something really great. This is what's part of what's being a hero is all about, is doing these little type of side missions that help people. I mean, all of that stuff is good, but as a season storyline, no, not good at all.
So, a small note on this. I thought I saw it the first time, but I confirmed it on the second watch. Becky stole Courtney's necklace when she was hugging her, because if you at the end of the scene, Courtney is going like this.
She's touching her chest.
Yeah.
Like she's
so on the first watch, I watched, and when she's walking up, she's got a necklace on.
Okay.
And after the hug, when she's feeling, she doesn't have a necklace on because she's like, she's patting. She's like thinking it fell down, like in her shirt or whatever. So I'm thinking, like father, like daughter, like
Interesting. So I did not catch that. Here is what I thought was happening, which I think is not the case, but I thought because of everything that was going on between fathers and daughters, she was looking for the locket. So I didn't notice she had on a necklace at all. I thought she was looking like out of habit. Remember that locket she wore forever? So that's what I thought she was feeling for.
I can't see her stealing it. I'm watching the scene right now. I cannot see her grabbing it. Boy, if she did, she's really good.
Yeah, because she's around the neck. Like, it's not obvious, but like, so.
Go back a little and make sure, like, and see, like, what was she wearing a necklace when she walked up to the door?
She was.
Yeah,
It's like a little.
I didn't see that at all.
It's like a little like diamond or something here. But
Gotcha.
Courtney mentions earlier in the season Pat mentions it to Sylvester.
Yeah, the locket.
That Courtney gave the locket to her dad.
Yeah, exactly.
So she doesn't have it. So
I know. Well, and I thought because like it was just an old habit, and that she was bringing up all those like feelings of her dad, and so she went to grab for the locket because it's muscle memory. She's had it forever.
That's what I thought too.
That's what I thought.
So.
But if she was really wearing a necklace, that is interesting.
So I'm looking at the scene now when she goes up the stairs, there's just a flash, like a quarter of a second when her sweater opens just enough and you can see a chain and a little heart or something on the chain, and then it's gone. Like that's all you see. And then after that, I'm watching the hug and I cannot see the girl grab it. If she did.
Well, you can't see it there, but like you see her when she's patting, she doesn't have anything.
Yeah.
And I'm sure they wouldn't show us that her actually taking it. It's always going to be an edit.
If she's that good
edit,
of a
but
thief.
like they're going to shoot it separate after taking off Courtney's necklace.
She's feeling her chest and you can't see it. It's a close up of her with her open sweater and you can't see it. So the girl did take it, but when you watch the scene of them hugging, she hugs her. And when she comes around, she's holding the envelope that Courtney gave to her, and there's no necklace in her hand.
She's good.
So, because her arms are like this, and she immediately comes down, and she's holding and she's like this with the envelope. I don't see a necklace in her hand. So, wow, okay, where did she put it that quickly? So, yeah, but fun to tear that one down.
Yeah, that turned into more than I thought it would. Interesting. All right, next scene here. And by the way, I'm purposely leaving the final scene for the end because we will hear it, so we can break that down because I have thoughts and feelings that Flash already crapped on. So I'm gonna try to explain my way out of that one after hearing it again. But
we'll just talk about it now.
We're not gonna talk about it now. Grundy Lives is the next one that we get to see, so he does get a second chance after all.
Yay.
Yeah. I'm glad he's back. And, but I would have loved, I would have loved him to see him in action helping Rick. So
I know, like budget overload for the effects because adding Grundy and S.T.R.I.P.E, but it would have been just so cool to see him there. But my question that I have in my notes about this is what brings Grundy back? Was it the fact that Rick was down on one knee and said, "I miss you, buddy," blah, blah, blah? Like, are they still pulling on this love conquers all theme? And that's all he had to do to bring Grundy back because nothing else worked until he said, "Hey, man, I miss you, buddy." Like,
I don't know if it was.
No idea.
I don't know if it was time. I don't know what it was. We don't know.
I think it's this whole lovey-dovey theme throughout the show. That's why, because that's the first time because every time else he's been out there, he's just been mad, right? He's never actually just expressed feelings. So
yeah, I don't know. It does. Yeah, Shade at one point does say it has to be the exact right circumstances for him to come back. Yeah. So who knows? Maybe that was part of it.
Yeah, but we got a hand.
We got a hand.
we got two grave escaping scenes this episode.
Yep.
A little bit more believable for Grundy, but anyways.
Yeah. Yeah, he can punch through the dirt. Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. All right. Yolanda tries to reconcile with her mom. How do we think this actually ended is what I want to know.
So, this was well acted by Yvette and well done. And I think it's a first step.
Yeah.
I think it is a first step in building a bridge back. I don't think it's like... I think she looks at the family dynamics that she's seeing, and she knows she needs to make that first step. She makes that first step, but I don't think it's like immediately solved.
Yeah.
I think there's still, even after she talks with her moms, she's not like super like upbeat and like everything's solved. It's like, this was a first step, and I think I'm glad about that too, because I don't think it would be appropriate because of the nature of their relationship that it was just like automatically like, okay, issue solved with one phone call.
Yeah. So exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm with you. It's not a solve all in that moment. It's just I'm trying to make amends. I'm trying to break the ice and start a conversation. And I'm imagining she's going to tell her little truth. Hey, this is why I've been doing this. I am a superhero. And maybe her mom will be like, what? My daughter? And maybe her mom will suddenly be proud of her. Like, hey, you're making something with yourself. This is good for us. This is good for our family. People know you as a superhero. You're part of the Justice Society, because that's all her mom cares about is reputation, right? So maybe that'll turn things around.
Perhaps.
So.
All right. Courtney reunites with Cameron. I personally liked this scene. I've been pulling for them.
Your ship came through.
Yes.
Yeah.
And Harley bought a first-class ticket.
I sure did.
Yeah. Yeah, they're good for each other. Honestly, like we've said, if she had not have helped Cameron with his powers, there would have been no way he could have fought his dad. And so, I appreciate, him being vulnerable to her and coming back and I like it.
Me too.
Yeah, they're cute together. I mean, they're the only couple that really worked on this show. I think they're that I was pulling for. I don't know if it comes back or not, but just going back to the whole idea of Rick and Beth in the future, no, I never saw it at all this season. It doesn't work. I don't believe that at all. But these two, Cameron and Courtney, for sure. I like that he comes back and says, are you sure you can help me? And it was a nice moment. I love the music that was playing as she's walking up the street towards his house and all that. Like, the song was really great. I was like, oh boy, here comes the emotion. Something's going to happen. And it was nice. It was a nice moment. So he's going to stick around, I guess. And I mean, we find out in the future that, hey, he joins the team because Icicle was mentioned as part of the Justice Society. So
yeah,
exactly. We get a lot of closure and a lot of exposition and explanation. So I thought it'd be better to just listen to that one more time before we break it all down.
Okay. Yeah.
So, and then the last scene we have before that one is that Artemis gets her revenge, which I was not expecting.
I liked, we get a time jump of 3 months, and I liked, like you said, about the JSA remarking about her showing up at the right time and asking how does she do that? And then when she didn't show up in the battle, like Flash said, I was kind of disappointed. And honestly, I forgot about her.
Yeah, I did too.
And then she shows up following in her parents' footsteps, and I liked that it was her that took Jordan down. I mean, I truly do. She was looking like Sportsmaster 2.0 in her outfit, and I appreciated that. But I hope in those years afterwards that she was able to heal and come back a little bit more, and be a little more maybe well-rounded. Because I mean, Artemis from Young Justice just has a special place in my heart because of all that she's gone through, and so seeing a little bit of that in her character here was nice.
Yeah, and she was also mentioned. Artemis was part of the Justice Society, so obviously she does come back and join the team. But again, I'm with you that she should have been there. She should have been part of the fight. That was her only storyline was, hey, I'm trying out for the team. I'm auditioning for the team. And we never get to see her actually join the team. So that is disappointing. It's really disappointing. But that doesn't take away from the final scene being really cool. I agree with you, Harley. It is awesome that she's the one that gets to exact revenge for her parents' murder. I wouldn't have wanted it any other way.
Yeah.
My only gripe that you guys heard was just the reversal of his arm. It doesn't make any sense. It's physically doesn't make sense. That was my gripe. But the scene itself was good. It was a good scene. I love that she has all this goo on the ground, and she explains it's petroleum jelly laced with this and this and this. It's in my dad's hockey pucks that he uses. It's really flammable. Oh, and guess what? It burns on water as well. So and ignites them on fire. It was a really good. I mean, when you to cheer for a revenge scene is kind of weird. It makes us sound like we're creepy, but hey, I'm cheering for this revenge scene.
Yeah, and it does kind of bring back the whole like ties to his family with the witch-like burnings.
Oh,
so
yeah, you're right.
I thought that was a good way to round out
I forgot about
the
that.
story and poetic demise for
So
Mr.
with
McKent.
with him burning away that there's no water left for him to reform, I would imagine. Like
That's what I assume the goal was.
Mm-hmm.
And that's my headcanon. She truly killed him.
Yeah.
Whether or not they would have let that stand, I don't know. But that was my headcanon.
But she did look cool.
Yep.
Yeah, I like her outfit. Was those baseballs on her chest?
I think so.
Because
like her dad.
yeah,
had.
2 baseballs,
Like
but
he
there's
had
this
those.
weird hook thing hanging underneath the baseballs. And what is that? It looks like a bone or something. I don't know what that was. There's like a little.
Yeah, there was one on either side, kind of like
Yeah,
a yellow
not sure.
thing. So
Just part of her costume. I don't know.
I'm gonna pull
I
that
don't
up
know.
and have a look at it.
All right. Well, of course, that isn't the final scene, but that is my favorite scene. So that is why I figured we would leave discussion of the final scene and speculation truly for the end. So
It's just the things I'm talking about. It's just stitching on her outfit. She's got like her outfit is a dark gray green, and then there's like ribs of yellow stitched all around the edges. That's all that is.
yeah, it's just part of her costume.
okay, cool.
Nice.
So we're gonna get to favorite scenes now. Is that what you're saying? Favorite scenes?
Yes.
All right, let's do favorite scenes.
Shape out and eagle!
And I just realized I forgot to write mine in here, and I'm going to go first because you guys got the 2 emotional scenes out of this episode, and there really wasn't anything left for me to pick, so I just went with one that kind of gives us a bit of information. It's the hospital scene when Dr. Midnight is there, and he's explaining, hey, this is what happened to Starman's body, and they're like, well, maybe we can find his brain. Let's keep him on life support. I just went with that scene because I just thought it was cool that they give us a reveal that, hey, Starman isn't quite gone, and we can save him. So here's that one.
Sylvester's body is still perfectly fine, but there was a brain bleed that has left the Ultra-Humanite's mind irrevocably damaged. For all intents and purposes, he's brain dead.
What do we do now?
Well, we don't worry about the Ultra-Humanite anymore.
But I mean, Sylvester. What about his brain?
He said it was gone. Of course, he lied to us every moment of every day, so I say we keep him on life support. Just in case.
And there we go.
Yeah, that was
Just
good.
in case.
I appreciated bringing Midnighter back in, and yeah, that was good.
Yeah. There you go. Nothing big and dramatic or emotional, but that's what I went with.
Cool. All right, so I'm up next, and I called it Every Word, and I just really appreciated the scene between Courtney and Pat. So let's take a listen.
Speaking of Old Faithful,
Hey.
you showed up just in time.
Yeah, well, not sure how I feel about the old part, but definitely feeling my age today.
How in the world did you get out?
Experience. Sylvester's very first adversary took me hostage. Guy by the name of Dr. Weird. W-E-E-R-D. Well, anyhow, when Sylvester rescued me, taught me a little trick, how to disjoint both thumbs so I could slip any restraint. That's what I did down there. And I was able to dig my way out. And pretty lucky he taught me how to do that, because I think I would have died down there.
Sylvester saved your life one more time.
Yeah, he did.
Pat, I'm sorry it wasn't really him who came back.
Yeah, I am too.
When the Ultra-Humanite, said all of those horrible things to you down here, I heard him. And when he came back upstairs,
Hey. I heard you too. Every word. Thank you.
Yeah, I just really loved them showing their love for each other. Throughout this series, we've seen Pat has treated her like a daughter. She wanted Starman to be her dad. She looked to her biological dad for affection, but it's been Pat who's been there all along, and this scene just really showcases that bond between the two of them. So,
yep.
Yeah, that was a great scene.
Yeah, that's been, when you guys keep talking about heart and Stargirl has heart, that's where it is. It's between Pat and Courtney. Everything else is kind of secondary. It's Pat and Courtney is where the heart of this entire series is. And it's nice to see them get to have, between the last couple episodes, her defending him and him hearing it. And then they get to both say, hey, I know what you said. And it's a nice moment for them to get to end that relationship on, for sure.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yep.
All right. Well, I'm up last. You already know what this is. I am calling this Adventures of the JSA, and this is where we're going to listen to the final scene and then unpack it.
And his awesome voice one last time.
Exactly.
Yes.
Right this way, ladies and gentlemen. Come, don't be shy. Here we are, the centerpiece of the entire museum. The meeting table of the Justice Society of America. Starwoman, Wildcat, Jade and her brother Obsidian, Dragon Queen, S.T.R.I.P.E 2.0, Jakeem Thunder, Icicle, Artemis, Sand, Damage, as well as our man and Dr. Midnight, whose impending nuptials are just around the corner, officiated by yours truly. And with those two come their loyal, if somewhat foul-smelling and simple-minded friend, Solomon Grundy. United, they stopped the Injustice Society from brainwashing America. They prevented that demonic brute Eclipser from merging his nightmarish world with our own. They shut down the Ultra-Humanite before he could tarnish Starman's legacy, and brought the true Sylvester Pemberton back to life. Then, they rescued the 7 Soldiers of Victory from a cosmic deity called the Nebula Man. They're the greatest heroes the world has ever seen. But they won't be the last. Oh no. Because there are other legacies of heroism waiting for a new generation to find, to take on, and rise up. For as much as evil has tried to destroy the Justice Society of America, it cannot. Nothing can.
dang it, if that is a hint as to what they had planned for season 4, it really sucks we're not going to get to see it. Like, rescuing the soldiers of destiny or whatever that was. Like, come on.
7 soldiers of victory. Yes, I absolutely believe that was the premise for season 4. That and rescuing Sylvester. I think that's what we would have gotten, especially knowing that Infinity Inc. was supposed to be the spinoff. So maybe we would see like them forming Infinity Inc. and Jade and Obsidian were also, and a couple others that I assume were from Infinity Inc. would have been part of the JSA.
Yeah.
But
I just wanted to say, like, if they go on to rescue the 7 soldiers, would that have brought back the janitor from season 1 since he was the knight?
Shining Knight,
I think so.
We saw in the museum his sword in the museum. Yeah, so
dang,
that would have been cool.
Yeah. So they definitely tell of the adventures we saw and then the adventures that we didn't get to see, which is why I agree. I think that was the premise for season 4, because clearly they had to have a direction and know where they were going. So I think that's what we would have gotten, and I'm like really bummed that we'll never get to see that. But I really do like how they use this to wrap everything up and still kind of leave it a little open-ended. They showed all of the artifacts, and they kind of said, this doesn't end. It's generational. It goes on and on. And then, they gave us, some little closure and interesting tidbits on characters. Again, I didn't see Rick and Beth getting together. I really thought it was going to be him and Yolanda. So I was a bit surprised by that little bit of exposition that got dropped.
But the shippers were out there on Twitter.
I'm sure that they were
all season long. Yeah. In any show, there's going to be some people shipping some
exactly, and there were tons of people shipping him and Yolanda too. But I felt like with the writing and the acting that they were leaning towards a relationship with him and Yolanda, not him and Beth. But this season they brought Rick kind of into Beth's family, so I guess that sort of makes sense.
Might as well throw in Jakeem and Cindy getting together too.
I know, I was kind of surprised we didn't get that. Not really, but I don't think that actually would have happened. I don't think Cindy was into him, but
10 years later, he's a grown man, right? So who knows?
I don't know. I didn't personally see them really getting together, but anyways.
I'm just saying that it's so outlandish, like Rick and Beth. That's all like, what? No way.
Yeah. One point that I wanted to counter from your rant was I felt like they were kind of calling out the adventures of the team within the museum and showcasing different things that they had used in the past, or different things from some people that maybe had retired. We saw the sword from Shining Knight, but then we also saw the Thunderbolt, and I kind of just assumed because Jakeem was able to embody the Thunderbolt that he and Jakeem are kind of now one, and that he didn't really need the pen anymore. And so
you see Sandman's the original Sandman's mask, and Sandy had a different power.
Yeah.
Who they mentioned had a different power, so he didn't need that Sandman mask.
And so I kind of thought that this museum was not really intended for them after their careers ended, but was a way to showcase and celebrate the JSA in general, as heroes. Kind of I think kind of how the present day Flash museum, quote unquote, kind of works. It's more of a hallway where they can learn about people. And yes, we see the actual museum in the future, but they still have a version of it in Star Labs present day. So that was my take on that.
I looked at a lot of the signage my second time.
Yeah.
And, there's Dragon Queen's lab. There's there's some of the stuff for other people, but there's the JSA Academy. There's other stuff. I thought of it think of it in the White House in the U.S. or the Capitol. You can go take tours and see things, but it's still being actively used.
Yeah.
So it's a dual purpose type of thing. So, it's a little more public, but it's also still being used.
Yeah.
Two very interesting takes on it. Okay. This part of it I wasn't really ranting on. I was just confused. Why? Because to me, the word museum means you're exploring things from the past. that's what a museum is all about. So why would the team be already retired and done at 24 years old? That's where I was completely disconnected. Like, it doesn't make any sense.
I don't think they are.
Yeah.
Because of the final scene that we
because of Flash showing
quite
up.
hear. But yeah.
Yeah. But in the comics, the JSA headquarters does have a museum in it. Because in the comic I recommend, and it's still pinned in the group of the JSA, one of the scenes is they're walking through the JSA headquarters that has a museum in it. And so it's still an active headquarters, but it's got a museum to the former members, the older members who've retired, and other people have taken up the legacy. So it's
Well,
it's
they
weird.
did that in season 1
too
when they went to visit the JSA headquarters. It didn't. Was that like a secret location, or was that a location that people could visit? Because they had similar things set up.
It looked the same almost.
It probably was the same set, but it looked very similar in setup, where they were showcasing every hero, and then the table was in the middle. So
could be replicas. I mean, if it's a museum, they could have just built replicas. Oh, here's the actual table. It's just a replica. It's not the table. It's not the actual headquarters where the team decides the mission.
It's a retired table.
Yeah, maybe it's an older table. I don't know. But yeah, I mean, at the very end, when Jay comes in and slices the table in half, and then he kind of leaves the door wide open, which I enjoyed that. But what he says when he comes in is that Courtney Whitmore needs the JSA, and Shade, you're part of that now too. So that's what said to me that they're not really retired.
But why does Courtney Whitmore need the JSA? She is the JSA. Doesn't she lead the team?
Well, yeah, I think that's what he's saying. Instead of saying Star Woman needs you, I think he was saying he just used her name instead.
Okay,
because
well, let's.
The Shade always calls her Courtney. He doesn't really ever call her Stargirl or Star Woman.
Well, I like that she grew up and they call her Star Woman now. But let's tear into this though, because Stargirl is supposed to be on a different Earth. So what is Jay Garrick doing here? Which Jay Garrick is this? Is it this Stargirl's Earth's version of him, or is he the Jay Garrick that we all know from the Flash universe? What do you guys speculate there?
No, I think it's this version of him.
This version of him?
This Earth's version of him, I thought.
I don't know, because we don't yet know how she crosses over with Titans, which will happen in 2023.
And where is Titans based? What Earth?
Its own.
It's on its own. It's a different Earth. But so I don't know. Like, we don't know if it's that Earth's version of Stargirl, if it is, the Stargirl's version of Stargirl. We don't know how that plays out. So I'm leaving the door open to say it may not be this Earth's version of Flash. It may be Jay Garrick Flash. It may be a multiverse version, and they have adventures. So I'm leaving it open. So I'm not sold that it's that Earth 2 or whatever this Earth is version of the Flash. I'm just leaving it open.
It's just a Jay Garrick, but probably not. But not one from this Earth. I guess, is he technically supposed to be dead? So maybe he is dead.
Yeah, he died in Crisis.
Yeah,
right?
we saw the helmet. Yeah,
no. I meant the Stargirl, the original Flash JSA.
Yeah, we saw the helmet in the museum.
Yeah.
So
maybe it's another Jay Garrick from another Earth, but I don't think it's from the CW Flash's Earth.
Yeah, who knows?
That's how I was taking that.
Just to leave us with a bit of confusion at the end.
It was to leave it open for possible opportunities for whatever may come.
Yeah, we get a crossover of some kind finally at the very end, but oh well. Still
we
cool
probably won't get anything,
see.
But they had to try.
Yeah, it's always cool to see him though. We all love John Wesley Shipp as Flash, so
yeah,
good to see him.
And I liked one little small thing about the museum too. It was the original Green Lantern's oath on there, not the Green Lantern from the League's oath. It was, it's that he has a little bit different oath. So I like those little little tiny things that you see.
To give the nod to the Golden Age heroes.
Yeah. So
cool, guys. Well, that is it for our discussion. We're going to remind you for the last time on Stargirl about our Patreon, because the show is continuing. Just because the Stargirl's over doesn't mean we are over. Flash is kicking off next, followed by Superman and Lois. So we're going to continue on that, and we continue to ask for your support, and this is how you can do it.
If you'd like to support our podcast, you can do so at our Patreon page at www.patreon.com/tomorrowslegends.
And on that note, if guys have time, I don't know, is there any time left to try to squeeze in a Patreon hangout before Christmas, or should we look to doing one between Christmas and New Year's? What do you guys think?
I won't be able to do one this coming Friday. I have too much I have to do.
I think this Friday is Christmas Eve, is it not?
No.
Or something?
It's Christmas
Eve.
Eve.
The 23rd, but yeah.
Oh, yeah, okay. Yeah. Anyway. So we can, we'll see. We'll keep you in the loop. But we do want to try to get one in to end the year. I think that would be nice somehow.
Yeah, it may need to be in
Or it may need to not be on a Friday.
Yeah, it doesn't
I don't know how many people have off. I do know I personally have time off between Christmas and New Year's, but yeah.
Okay, we'll throw it out to our Patreoners. We got a special Patreon chat going, so we'll throw it in there and we'll see what dates are open for people. We'll leave it there. Yep. So there you go. Let's get into feedback.
If you don't dial in, we'll cry like a violin. Feedback.
All right, for the last time, who wants to read Comic Geek Kev on Stargirl?
I'll read it, I guess.
Okay.
All right. Good afternoon, legends. So that's it. No more Stargirl except for the apparent Titans crossover. Couple things that weren't surprising. Pat made it out alive. Check. Barbara used the crossbow just when it was needed the most. Check. Artemis avenged her parents, just not when I thought. Check. Cameron chose the good side in the end. Check. Cosmo returned to Courtney, and I was actually satisfied with that whole thing. Check. Couple things that still need answers or made no sense. What the heck is Cosmo? There are several question marks and explanation. I can't say that word. You know what I'm trying to say. Those things.
Yep.
Other punctuation. Thank you. The Flash, a very seasoned hero, would enter a room and just run through an object. What if it had been a person? I don't buy it.
Yeah, that was very The Boys-esque.
Yeah.
Their speedster ran through somebody.
Oh dear. Oh, I haven't watched that one yet. I do have to watch that one. Okay. Yeah. And this is probably just me not remembering, but who was the girl Mike talked to at the end? His mom. But we covered that. Overall, I really enjoyed the episode. They obviously saved their SFX budget over the last few episodes for this one. Some cool fight scenes, awesome acrobatics from Courtney, and a well-deserved end for Grand Icicle.
Yes, the witch. The Wicked Witch of the North.
The after fight scenes were also well done, and they left plenty of time for them. I like the Yolanda scene of her talking to her mom. I just don't foresee her mother being accepting of the whole JSA thing like the other parents were. So, yeah.
Could be.
I was disappointed not to see Artemis at the fight, especially after it was pointed out that she always seemed to show up where she was needed. But I guess in the end she did exactly that. I didn't believe that Jordan was gone after he blew up at the junkyard, especially when they showed his face in the smoke. But I don't think there was much that was surprising in the last half of the show, except maybe Grundy. I figured he was done for, and they might have not had him come back if the show was renewed. That might have been a season 4 plan. I wish we had seen Jade and Todd in the fight, and I'm guessing that the Shade Flash scene was added in case the show was canceled, but was probably made more or less with the rest of the episode. I wonder what might have taken up that time if the show had been renewed.
You know, that could be what was refilmed in the end, because I bet you the Shade and Flash thing was their new scene they added.
I think it was.
Because it didn't involve any of the cast.
And if they weren't canceled, that scene literally would have made no sense. They would never have done it.
So that's probably the new thing.
Yeah.
I think so too.
Yeah.
And I'm going to miss this show. It wasn't perfect, but it had some great episodes, an engaging cast, some great effects, usually, and it was generally just fun. So until next time, Legends, whenever that may be, I'm giving this one 9 out of 10 super flammable hockey pucks. Stay legendary, Comic Geek Kev. P.S. Flash, I'm glad to see Cyber is doing better.
Aw, thanks, bud.
We all
Actually, if you could see the video, he's been getting himself on camera quite a bit tonight. He's sucking for some attention while I'm speaking. So, yeah.
Second email from Comic Geek Kev. I'll just keep reading.
Sure.
I may as well. So after listening to Flash's solo podcast on the previous episode, I realized the woman in question in my email is Mike's mom. How did I forget that? Because she's kind of forgettable.
Yeah.
But we answered it for you several times, don't worry. Also, I know you said there wasn't a decision yet. I would, for one, love it if you guys were able to do a Stargirl wrap-up now that the show is over. Comic Geek Kev. Would you like to address that comment, Flash?
Well, we'll see. I mean, I gave a good rant at the beginning, and I was saying over the last week that I'm really not interested in coming back to the show, but we could. I mean, if our listeners really want it, we can. That's fine. I just don't think it'll be as emotional as it would be ending Legends or ending Arrow, because we had way more time with those shows. But if you guys want it, just send in a request. Maybe I'll put a poll up on the Facebook page, and if we get enough response, we can do it. I don't know. What do you guys feel?
I think at the very least it would be interesting to rewatch season 3, because now that we know what we know, it means something completely different.
Yeah, and I might have to anyway, because Patty Spivot and her daughter have not watched the season at all with me, so then I think they want to finish it just for the sake of finishing it, but I don't know.
Yeah.
We'll see. It'd be interesting to see because the show is geared towards a younger audience, what her daughter would think of this season. I'd be curious to see it through those perspectives.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Thanks, Comic Geek Kev. You've been there with us all season long, so thank you for that. We appreciate the constant feedback. It's fun. Next up is voicemail from Dad L, who's also been with us all season long.
Hello, Cosmic Crew. It's Dad L. We have reached the end of Stargirl, the finale. So what to say about it? I've been mulling over it for several days, and I will say that I'm satisfied with how it ended. Every storyline was pretty much wrapped up. I am disappointed. I thought the fight was over a little too quick. It was action-packed. It was full of excitement. But maybe if it just gone a few minutes longer. But everybody got their moment. Evil Grandma got her end. I was confused about Icicle becoming the ice cloud and disappearing. At first I thought, was he dead? Is he moving? And then it appeared Cameron did the same thing, so that was a little unclear to me. Of course, we got resolution on both those things. But then there was the 20-minute, 20-something minutes, the falling action, the resolution, the epilogue, complete with Sylvester's brain screaming. Man, that was extremely disturbing. But overall, I will say that I'm satisfied. But was it what I would have done? No. But I'm not a showrunner. I'm not a producer. I'm not a writer. What do I know? I'm just along for the ride, and I enjoyed it. I want to say that the actor who plays Courtney Breck really has embodied this character over the course of the show. The relationship between her and Pat, I think, was the heart of the show, and it was fitting that we got more of that in this final episode. And a few other things I will nitpick. Mike and his mom, it set up a tender moment with Mike and his parents, but what was the point of the storyline? The whole thing could have been skipped. I really didn't see the point. I wasn't crazy about the Dragon King being reduced to a stuffed animal, and I will not say the name that shall remain nameless. I've reminded everyone else of. And then I still am wondering, so Icicle was the one doing that Mr. Bones puzzle? Why? Did he have any connection? Was that setting something up in the future? Yes, I'm still hung up on that puzzle.
Yeah.
I did like the Never the End card, the little end title. That is so Jeff Johns. If you have read anything that he's written, he always has a sense that the adventure continues. So Jeff Johns does a fantastic job with hope and optimism. The story continues on. The adventures continue on. So overall, I thought it was a fitting end. I thought it was a good, solid finale. And I'm sorry that we're not going to get to see more. That was a great setup for future adventures. I'll give the episode 9 Cosmo Rides into the Sunset. Dad L as Father of Krypton.
Thanks, Dad L. Yeah, the whole cloaked figure building a puzzle in the basement. That obviously was Icicle, now that we know, but why? What's the point of all that?
That's what I'm saying. We need to rewatch season 3 because it takes on a whole different light.
Yeah.
Crazy. Huh. That's a good question to try to answer. All right, cool. Next up is Perry White.
Hey, Cosmic Crew. Perry White here with feedback for Stargirl's series finale, The Reckoning. I'll give my rating for this episode at the end, but let me get some of my issues that I had with it out of the way first. So, the ISA's plan had a pretty significant flaw. They wanted to use Starmanite as the face of their new America plan, but the show never established Starman's celebrity either in Blue Valley or in the world. In fact, you never know that anyone in the world at large knew who Starman or the JSA was because we never saw that connection on screen. My second issue was with the flash forward with the Shade leading a group of people on the tour of the JSA museum. I mean, so through 3 seasons, not once did we see the community at large knowing anything about the JSA or any of the good deeds they did. In fact, I mean, the show sort of went out of its way to never connect the heroics of our team with the community at large. So, I mean, for me, it's pretty hard to believe that even in 10 years, people would actually know anything about the JSA, let alone be so interested as to visit their museum. I mean, you sort of contrast that with The Flash, and I've had a number of issues with The Flash, but it's basically, looking at The Flash, it's like there is a connection between The Flash and his heroics and the city that he serves. There is that incredible connection. So, of course, in the future, there would be a Flash museum. But in this show, Stargirl never showed the JSA's connection to the people of Blue Valley. So it's just hard to believe that anyone, first of all, would have built a museum and that anybody would have actually gone to see it. My final issue with the finale was they decided to go the Bebo route with Dragilla Gorilla. I mean, I know magic in any show's sort of ultimate trump card, right? But it was a bit dissatisfying seeing Jakeem Thunderbolt turn him into a teddy bear. It just felt like a cop-out. All right. So now that I have that off my chest, let me talk about the things I loved about this finale, as well as the series in general. I really loved watching Courtney literally take hold of her destiny and the staff, taking it back from Starmanite. Another thing that I loved about this episode, it sort of harkens back to one of the episodes of Tales of the Jedi. And so, much like we saw in Tales of the Jedi, where we learned that Anakin Skywalker ultimately helped Ahsoka survive Order 66, I loved Pat explaining that it was Sylvester's training that helped him survive being buried alive. I really just sort of liked that note and that little tidbit. I thought that was really nice, showing that connection between the two. And it speaks to the friendship that they have, and I just really love that little piece. And call me a sap if you want to, but I kind of did like that everyone got their happy ending here. Even the gambler, I mean, he wasn't alive to see it, but I like the fact that they did not drop the storyline between Courtney connecting with his daughter and delivering that message. I thought that was important. I thought that was key, and I'm really glad that they didn't drop that. Overall, I left the finale with a smile on my face, and I was satisfied. It was nowhere near as good as the penultimate episode, but that is often the case with the season or series finale. And yes, I'm looking at you, Legends of Tomorrow. Anyway, I give this episode 8 tickets to the JSA Museum out of 10. Now, Overall, Stargirl has had more ups and downs. I just wish the writers had spent more time focusing on Courtney. Ultimately, it's her show and it's her journey. And anytime a series ends, I always ask myself, what was the purpose? Or what was the goal? Or what was the point of the show? After seeing Breck Basinger at a comic convention and seeing the way that she connected with little girls in the crowd, I think the show missed out on a major opportunity when they never really took the opportunity to show Courtney / Stargirl serving as a role model to young girls and young women in Blue Valley. Maybe that was probably a sort of story that they would have gotten to maybe in the later seasons, but all I know is that in the 3 years that we had this show on air, we sort of never really got that, and that's just disappointing. So anyway, overall, from this show's fantastic start in season 1 to its scary as you know what summer school season 2 to its murder mystery conclusion, I'm glad I had the chance to watch this show. And I'm looking forward to watching Stargirl at least one more time on Doom Patrol. I'm sorry, not Doom Patrol. I wish she would show up on Doom Patrol, but we're going to see her on Titans. Anyway, like the final title card said, it's never the end, and I hope that's truly the case. Anyway, this has been Perry White, squeaking in on deadline for the last time for Stargirl. And yep, that really hurts my heart to say it, but that's where we are. Anyway, I look forward to hearing what other folks have to say about the show and the series. This has been Perry White, and I'm out.
Excellent as always. Perry, you've been a good friend of the show.
Good stuff.
He brings up a lot of his points that he brought up ties all back into the one through line that I've joked about and complained about all 3 seasons, is that the town just doesn't know what's going on. They don't know these heroes exist. They don't even know, how many times have they ignored all the strange happenings going on? They're just like, oh, big green explosion sky. Oh, whatever. Can I have apple pie, please? So I think a lot of his points just tie into that, and I think he makes a really good one about how much better could this story have been if we saw Courtney connecting to people of the town and little girls looking up to Stargirl. Wow, that's a perfect superhero for them to, to revere and to look up to and have as a idol and a role model. That's a really, really good point that he makes, that they missed out on that completely because the town was all but dead to the show.
Yeah, the town wasn't a character for the most part. Yeah.
No, it wasn't. I agree.
Good thoughts. All right. Wrapping it up, as she often does, is Dreamweaver. Here she is.
Hello, Cosmic Crew and Star Fam. It's Dreamweaver here, sending in my thoughts on Stargirl for the last time. Unless, it does, of course, get picked up somewhere in the future. But we're here to talk about all things Stargirl and the Season 3 and current series finale. And I know what I said at the opening of the season, that I would open my heart a little more and not be so curmudgeon-y. But, I don't know if I can make that promise for this episode. Wrapping up an entire show, even if only for a 3-season-long run, is a tall order. Just wrapping up a season's long plot and arc is a tall order. Heck, just making an episode of television, putting it out for broadcast, is a tall order. I know, I work in the industry and not even at that level yet. But this did end as we have come to expect of a Stargirl finale and fumbled what could have been rich character dynamics and payoffs for the sake of tying things up into neat little bows. So with that, I'm only giving this 6 junkyard explosions out of 10. I'm starting with the things I didn't like so that I can end on a happy note. So first, Pat digs himself out of his own grave, when they previously gave us no reason or explanation for him to be able to do so. No showing that he had a knife, or a way to control S.T.R.I.P.E, or that he was free from his restraints or anything like that. I know that after the fact, Pat tells Courtney that Sylvester had taught him how to dislocate his thumbs to get out of any restraints, but there was no indication or hint of that beforehand. Not before he went into the grave. Nothing to give us a sense that Pat could crawl out of his grave, even after having his hands tied behind his back. And that really felt cheap. And this would have been a great opportunity, too, to have Courtney or someone else be able to save Pat before showing up to the final fight. And have Courtney actually call him Dad to his face. And then as the team was walking to the fight, they made a crack about how Artemis will probably show up at the right time, and they made a self-aware joke. And then she never even came to the fight. We never got to have her officially fight as a member of the JSA and join in. I was really disappointed in that too. She did get that really epic and really dark moment of revenge on Icicle, which was good that she had a part in the finale, but I wanted her in the fight with the JSA. Cindy also didn't get to join in the fight with everyone else. She, Mike, and Jakeem were still on their side mission, which I guess keeping Dragon King away from Ultra-Humanite and Jordan is a good strategic idea, but how much cooler would it have been to have everyone come together on the JSA side and on the evil side for a final fight? And I wanted to see Courtney and Cindy, and Cindy and Yolanda for that matter, reconcile and apologize to each other. They came to conclusions on their own individually, but they didn't get to reconcile together. But we didn't see that follow through. They also tried to call back to season 1 with them ending up at the tire factory, mimicking Courtney's first fight with Brainwave, but we didn't get as smart a scene here like that time. We just had Jakeem give the most ambiguous wish of the series probably, but he had the right intention, so it was fine I guess, despite being unclear. And then Dragon King got, Bebo'd. Sorry for mentioning the blue one, but it was similar. I guess the stuffed animal is better than being toast, but it was basically Eclipso 2.0. And within the actual fight itself, the show is usually pretty impressive with the creative choreography and staging. But this one felt like they had run out of time, or run out of budget, or they had used it all up on Cosmo and S.T.R.I.P.E, because Jordan didn't even get to show off any of his power that we know he has besides what seemed to be freezing Courtney's breath from the inside. Rick got knocked out pretty quickly because of his symptoms, even though he was wearing the hourglass, and didn't get to do anything. Beth did nothing, and Yolanda just accidentally knocked down a car. And they played that death as a joke, which feels really weird considering they had a whole season of Yolanda being haunted by a different accidental death. At least Barbara got her shot in on Jordan and stood up for Courtney. But you could tell that there were actions at certain points in the fight slowed down or stalled so that other characters could intervene. The only good section was with Starmanite versus S.T.R.I.P.E and then Starmanite versus Courtney over the staff. But even that latter one was accompanied by dialogue, the equivalent of, snap out of it, I know you're still in there, love is more powerful, etc., etc., CW speech. They could have just let the fight talk. Let the fight tell us that Courtney was worthy and Ultra-Humanite was losing the hold on the staff, showing that in the fight choreography. But instead, they just had her yell, I'm worthy, and take it back. I could see that they wanted it to try to be reminiscent of the scene in season 1 when she and Cosmo had that big bond in the basement, but it didn't have that same payoff effect here. And Cameron was the one to end up turning on his dad. Good call on that one. But we didn't even get an Icicle versus Icicle moment. Jordan slowly raised his hands, and then Cameron just took him out. And that ice cloud with Jordan's face in it was a bit too Voldemort for my liking. I just don't tend to love that effect. I've seen it in too many things. And then Cameron just disappeared in the ice equivalent of a smoke bomb. I don't think we've ever seen that happen before, and they just needed a way for him to disappear. Alright? And Jordan turning on Cam. With all that we've seen of Jordan's motivations for doing what he's done, and it being all for Cam and to have a better world for his son, I know how crazy Jordan can get on occasion, and he did come back from the dead, but I still don't think he would have turned on Cam. It's what set him apart from Brainwave in the first season. And then that was just it. I guess that trio of Ultra-Humanite, Icicle, and Dragon King wasn't as much of a threat as everyone thought. No one on the good guy's side even got seriously hurt. Not even Pat, who was literally fully buried alive. So we all guessed that it would wrap up quickly and safely for all the characters, but that was probably the least impressive fight payoff that we've seen of the 3 finales. And I knew we wouldn't get to see everything that we wanted because of this being a series finale as well, and not having another season to let things breathe and play out without being rushed. So at least we got some, like Mike getting to talk to his mom, even if I'm guessing that would have been more fleshed out in a season 4. And Courtney did get to deliver the letter to Gambler's daughter, even if the Gambler's death ended up accounting to nothing more than being a MacGuffin so that the season could be set in motion, because he just got in the way. It really had nothing to do with the Gambler's story. And I think my favorite moment this entire episode, because it was so subtle, because it harkens back to Courtney's journey, was when she was leaving the daughter's house and reached for her locket that wasn't there. It was so subtle, but it was so rich. And such a nice moment showing Courtney's journey with her dad and her loss of her dad and everything else that she's been through since then. But what I found odd was that we didn't end the show with Courtney and the characters we've been following. I know that the show is about legacy and carrying on the legacy and heritage of what has come before while still paving the way for something new. So ending it in a museum of the JSA and ending with saying that the adventures haven't ended is good and makes a lot of sense. And with them jumping 10 years in the future, they probably didn't have a good way to actually make the characters look older or different or time to do so. But it's still weird to not end with your main characters, especially Courtney, on screen. I know that Arrow kind of had to do that, but Oliver was dead and it was still about him and his team the whole episode. So I will say that I've been upset with how little they've grown Courtney and had her come into her own as a leader. Even this episode, she got the staff back, but she wasn't leading her team. There was no definitive moment of her feeling like the team leader, and that was really disappointing to me. Now, I know that I have high expectations and expect a lot, probably more than just the average TV viewer, but I like good storytelling. And to me, that means follow through on character arcs and growth, and I just didn't see that here. No big payoff in story or in plot. I will say that I did like seeing a cameo from John Wesley's ship right at the end there, and I liked Courtney and Pat's conversation after the fight and Cosmo choosing his old case again. I like the darker stuff, so the opening scene was brutal, but a good scene, as was Artemis's revenge. I will say that the show seems to not have known what it wanted the age of its audience to be, because they do some really dark, really mature things, and then they turn enemies into toast and stuffed animals. It's inconsistent. Legends could get away with that stuff, because they had set the tone and kind of established that, but this is just really inconsistent in Stargirl. I also liked hearing who became members of the JSA through the years, and having a little bit of those mentions pay off there. Okay, so I didn't love this episode, but let's touch on the series for a moment. I know that I've been hard on the series a lot, but I rewatched the first season not too long ago, and even in the rewatch, I got that warm, giddy feeling when you see something that you love and just makes you happy and you want to see more of. From the ISA versus JSA fight cold open in the pilot, to watching Courtney find the staff and accidentally blow up a car at the drive-in, to her flying around Blue Valley on Cosmo, it was great. And the villains in the ISA and the setup of everything was also great. Seeing Courtney's journey with her dad and thinking she was Starman's daughter, to her journey with Pat was really nice in Season 1. The effects are great, still great, especially the cosmic staff. It was all new territory and a different feel and vibe than other Arrowverse and DC shows, and I really appreciated it in the beginning. You could tell there was a lot of thought that went into it, but after the first season, it felt stunted. I know that the pandemic happened, and that made production a bit weird, but it just started to not feel as full or as alive as it did in Season 1. And I really appreciate the theme of legacy and watching the father-daughter journey with Pat and Courtney. I was able to meet and talk to Breck at GalaxyCon in Raleigh this past summer, and she's just so very genuinely sweet and energetic and loves meeting the fans. She was really cool to talk to. Despite some misgivings with the storytelling, you can tell how much the cast and crew have loved creating the characters and creating the show, and that's always great to see, how much people do love getting to do that work. And Stargirl also has a special place, because it was actually the first time I wrote in feedback for you guys. I didn't start with Legends, because I had missed the very tail end of Season 5, but I joined in during the first season of Stargirl, so I have been with you guys the full run of Stargirl, so that's pretty cool. All in all, I know that I've been up and down on the series, but I am glad that it exists, and I know how much the show and the character of Courtney means to Geoff Johns, and that he was able to bring her to life in live action, as well as the show being able to introduce new audiences to the JSA and more obscure DC characters that don't always have a chance to shine. I do think the show had a lot of potential, and we really could have seen Courtney and the others grow into more mature superheroes had it continued. But as it did say, it's never the end, so who knows if we might be able to get little bits and pieces or even more show at some point. Except for my feedback, because we have reached the end of that. So, that's all for now, and that's a wrap on Stargirl. Until next time, when Superman and Lois starts back up, see your friend, Dreamweaver.
Yes, so just erase
Good
my
stuff.
rant and I'll implant her, because she said basically everything I said, just a much more nicer tone.
Yep.
But,
I said everything I had to say in the podcast.
yeah. So thanks for giving me some backup there. But it's understandable. Everything makes sense. Good side, bad side, whatever. I think everybody's got valid points, good thoughts as always from all our listeners. And Dreamweaver just wrapped it up as she always does. And we totally appreciate that. And she has been with us from the beginning. I didn't realize Stargirl was where she began. I thought it was Legends. So that's kind of fun to know.
Yeah, I didn't remember that either.
Stargirl.
Yeah.
Cool. Good stuff. Good stuff, everybody. That is it for our Stargirl feedback. The show does go on. As this tagline said, it never ends. The story never ends. So we're going to continue on with Flash and Superman Lois. And if you guys want to send in feedback for that, this is what you do.
If you would like to be a part of the show, you can send in your feedback to tomorrowslegendspodcast@gmail.com. You can also reach us on Twitter at Tomorrow's Legends. We'd love you to join our Facebook page at facebook.com/groups/Tomorrow's Legends and become part of the community.
Well, we got some final thoughts here because we're not sure if we're going to continue on with another wrap-up episode or not. So the last thing we're going to talk about is our overall Stargirl thoughts. And we're going to let X-Force kick it off because he actually got some things written down here. Me and Harley are going to have to go off the skin of our teeth.
Yeah. The show had a lot of potential. Did it live up to the comics that I've read? No. But it did a better job than some of the iterations of the JSA that we've seen. Season 1 is good, and I felt like the back half of Season 3 was pretty good, but Season 2 faltered for me. I feel like the series was hampered by all the changes going on in the DC world with HBO Max, DC, CW. All those changes hurt the series. And I think if we had moved over to Max or whatever the new service is going to be called, things would have been different. I think we're just starting to see the heroes picking up the legacy of the JSA and making their own. While it was nice to hear that from Shade, I would have liked to have seen it. But I do feel like they did what I asked and, gave us those future adventures, and we know that we get to they had those adventures even if we didn't get to see them. So, this series has a special place in my heart too, because I was really happy when Legends decided to start covering it, and so it really got me active in doing more for the show because of that. And I appreciate it for what it is. It was a golden age tale, and it was starting things. So I appreciate it a whole lot.
Yeah, no, I thought it was a really great series. I mean, I never expected to like it. I was like, no, this is going to be super cheesy. Like, it's geared for a younger audience. We knew that going into this, Flash. I'm just saying, y'all, we knew what this was about and what this was for. So y'all can act surprised, but you shouldn't have been. Anyways, but that trailer very, very pleasantly surprised me. And then the first episode, I was like, okay, I'll give it a shot. Trailer looks all right, could be a little cheesy, but I really was blown away by their pilot. It was way better than I ever expected it to be, and maybe for that reason I've always held it maybe on a little bit lower of a pedestal, but I really felt like they did kind of a great job with it. I think I've had less issues with the series overall, and maybe that's just because I was simply willing to be a little bit more forgiving because I knew what kind of a tale this was going to be, and I expected that they would leave some of it a bit more, not like open-ended, but just not fleshed out the way we were expecting, maybe not written perfectly, not choreographed perfectly. I definitely think those things clearly occurred. I think a lot of people had issue with season 2. I know my thoughts weren't really made known on the podcast as it was going because I was not able to be here, but when I watched it, I feel like I took less issue with season 2 than the rest of you have, but I do agree it probably was the weakest. So overall, I thought it was a spunky little show. It had a lot of heart, and I am really going to miss it.
Okay. Well, Harley's been swinging her hammer over my head all episode, threatening to kill me, so I need to try to dial that back a little bit.
No, you're good.
Because I do want to come back for Superman. I'm like, jeez.
Get you, Flash.
But listen here, like I do rant to get it off my chest, and I've kind of switched it. I don't know if you guys ever noticed as the season goes on. I used to rant throughout the podcast, and I decided I would rather get my rant out at the beginning. That way we can enjoy the show a little bit more, and so I did throw a lot at this episode in the beginning in my opening monologue because I wanted to get out of the way. Now, if you guys remember, it was me that decided to cover this show. Like Harley said, I don't want to do this one. And I gave it a try, and I was the one who said, oh my God, it is so good. I can't believe it. Harley, let's just check it out. And she did, and she agreed with me. Yes, let's do it. So I'm going to bring it back to there. Like, season 1 was absolutely fantastic. I loved season 1. The only thing I didn't like was like the last 10 minutes of the finale. That's where they dropped the ball. But all the way up to that, season 1 was spectacular. We rated it high, we revered it, we loved everything about it because it was endearing, it was heartfelt, it had such good writing and such depth to everybody, and we just fell in love with it right away. Season 2 really dropped the ball, and I don't care what their reasons or excuses were, COVID and all that kind of stuff. The writing sucked. Everything was just awful for that, and I just couldn't enjoy it like I enjoyed season 1. Everything was going to get compared to season 1 because of how good it was, and if you start that good, you should be able to continue that well. And then season 3 I just found them, yes, I think season 3 was better than season 2, but I just found they could not find their way again, and they had some really, really epically great episodes and some really, really bad ones, and once again, the finale just comes up short for me. But, you know, we're here to talk about the show, and, you know, sometimes it gets a little aggravating and frustrating, and sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes I love it. So, overall, I think Stargirl was decent. I would like to have watched more seasons. I would like to have gotten 5 seasons to see where they let these characters grow up a little bit, and, you know, it's a shame we're going to miss out on some of that stuff, but... You know, overall, I still will miss it. I still will miss I love Pat and I loved Rick, you know, and Grundy. I would love to have had Grundy back, because that to me is just a comical character to have around. I would love to see him and Rick's friendship, you know, because my question is, okay, Grundy's back alive. What's he going to do? Move in with Rick? Okay, you got to, they're going to be roommates because Rick has a house all to himself, right? So now he's got to remodel and make it accommodating for his size. So I got, you know, it's just fun things like that I'm thinking about that I wish we could get to see, but we won't. So, yeah, season 1 was amazing. Season 2 was not amazing. Season 3 is somewhere in the middle. So, you know, it averages out to being a pretty decent show. It has done better than a lot of the episodes of Flash have been, you know, and there's definitely some low moments in Legends that I complained about, but I don't think it's better than Legends. Legends still is far better than Stargirl was, I would say. Overall, it's just 3 seasons isn't enough. It's not enough to really, really get emotional for me. I'm not going to cry. I'm not going to be sad about this one going. It sucks we don't get to cover it anymore, but I'm not as emotionally attached to it. So, yeah. We'll see if Stargirl's characters do continue on in other shows. It'd be cool to see them pop up in for a quick, you know, crossover. Maybe when Flash ends. I don't know. I don't know if that'll happen, but
I don't know.
There you go, guys. That is kind of all we got for Stargirl, and yeah, like I said, we'll talk about to our Patreon people about that, having a hangout, and if not, everybody have good holidays because Christmas is like a week away. So. Merry Christmas to all of our Legends listeners. We appreciate you guys all year round. We thank you not just our Patreon supporters, but just our regular listeners. We love all of you. We thank you for being with us and keeping our show going. And we'll be back in the new year. So happy holidays from The Flash. I am signing off as Stargirl for the last time.
And this is Harley Quinn, and I'm also saying happy holidays, Merry Christmas, and I think Hanukkah's coming up soon. Happy Hanukkah, happy whatever you celebrate, all the things. Yeah. We celebrate Christmas, so Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. I'm gonna miss this show. Was it spectacular? No, but I very much enjoyed it. So for the last time on Stargirl, this is Harley Quinn, and I'm out.
And I appreciate in the DC world, we've got a wide variety of shows that can bring different things to the table, and I enjoyed what Stargirl brought. And so everyone have a wonderful holiday season. Merry Christmas. This is X-Force 11, so say we all.
Tomorrow's Legends is not affiliated with CBS, Warner Brothers, HBO, or the CW. We're a fan-made podcast for entertainment purposes only and are part of the Cybercast network. Be sure to check out our partner shows, The Mandalore and Dive into DC, covering your favorite Star Wars and DC Comics properties. Thanks for listening.